watching closely.
What's the secret, Max?
You just gotta find something you love to do and then do it for the rest of your life.
I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Establishing Shot, a podcast where we do deep dives into directors and their filmographies. I am pretty excited to sort of be wrapping up our Wes series with his as of now, final film, Asteroid City. My name is Eli. I have first-time guest Ian Naude with me today. I pronounced your last name right, correct?
You got it perfect. Naude.
Sweet, Naude. It's got the little accent mark, so that helps.
It's because I'm fancy.
Fancy, that's right. I'll let Ian introduce himself in a second. I'm excited about this. I'm pretty sure Ian too is coming in on one viewing of this one, a film that is probably needs more than one. There's a lot going on in this one, but yeah, Asteroid City is going to be the topic of discussion. Our first movie really that's like current. It's still in theaters. I think it actually, as of the time of this recording, just dropped where you can rent it at home for like $20 on Amazon Prime. So I'm sure by the time this comes out, it'll be available on all those formats for people to watch if they didn't make it to theaters. So that's exciting. I'm sure if more Wes movies comes out, we'll I'll jump back in and bring someone on to cover those as they come out. But as of now, this is the last one. It's kind of bittersweet. How do you feel about Wes's filmography so far? Like, are you like Wes, like keep pumping them out? Because that's kind of how I feel.
I mean, really want Wes to do what he loves to do, because I know that's what made his first movies that came out. It's clear that he was doing what he loves to do, and it still is. And that's what makes his film special is he loves doing it. So as long as he's loving doing it, I'll be a fan of it. He just needs to keep cranking them out.
Keep doing it. Yeah. Ian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, how you became a movie guy, movie buff, cinephile.
I'd like to be a buff someday. Yeah. So my name is Ian. I live in Tennessee. Obviously, and I sell insurance, and that's the most boring part of this whole segment, hopefully. But I love it. We live here in East Tennessee, best part of Tennessee to live in my opinion. It's beautiful. I've got a wife, 2 kids, and one of them is currently asleep, and the other one is our oldest. She's 4. You might see her here in a little bit because my wife and her are on like a mother-daughter date. When she comes in, almost guarantee she's coming right here to see what I'm doing. So, in terms of how I got into movies, this must have been, longer than that, maybe 12 years ago.
Yeah.
I was just like the average movie viewer. I still love movies. I love going to the theater, but in terms of the actual movies I liked, I like, some things that today I consider, inferior. Some of them even, garbage, right? And I worked with Michael Johnson. We both know Michael Johnson, a coworker of ours from way back in the day. Mm-hmm. And he started just feeding me little nuggets of, film goodness. He actually started me off with, it was either The Exorcist or Requiem for a Dream, which almost turned me off to
Yeah.
pursuing more. Those movies are heavy. But he
Just
just kept
diving
giving
into
me
the
little
deep end
bits of
head
stuff.
first.
Yeah. It's like, why do you start with those? But eventually something clicked, and I was like, I want more. Actually, I think it was when Michael Johnson asked me to, you know, do his Oscar thing. He does this Oscar Academy Award thing each year where he watches all of the nominees and tries to guess who's going to win on a weighted point, scale, where like Best Picture is worth more points than, international short. Right?
Okay. That's fun.
And so I did that with him, and it was fun. I was like, that's fun. I liked it. And I watched more movies than and a large variety of movies that I would have normally watched. And that kind of kickstarted it for me.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
Do you remember what who won Best Picture, or who was nominated that year?
I remember that Daniel Day-Lewis won. He was my pick to win Best Actor for Lincoln, and he did win.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm trying to remember which movie won Best Picture that year. And
yeah, I couldn't tell you.
I remember it was the year Daniel Day-Lewis won for Lincoln. That I know. So
yeah. So that must have been about 10 years ago, a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a fun. I guess too, you're watching movies a little bit more palatable than Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, it's not quite a thing, honestly.
Yeah.
Glad I watched it. It's worth watching once,
right?
If you're into film. So.
Yeah, I think it's a really good movie, but I don't know that I want to watch it again. Even as someone who I watched it. I actually watched it sometime in the last year for the first time. I was like, that was really good. I don't know that I ever want to watch it again.
Yeah.
Which yeah, it's an intense one for sure.
It's intense. It's
heavy. Yeah. What, I always ask people, what was your first Wes Anderson movie? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember I actually remember exactly when I watched it too. It was my junior year in college. I went to Liberty University, and it was at Christmas time, and there's this period of time where everybody's already left, but there's like a few stragglers.
Yeah.
They're still on campus, and everything's empty, but things are still open. You still go to the cafeteria and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of the stragglers that year, right before Christmas. And so the question is what are we going to do? What are you going to do?
Right.
And as time goes on, it's, you can't do stuff with people. So I was like, I'm going to go to the movies. And I went to the theater, and I just winged it. And I just picked Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah.
And it was honestly the perfect, viewing experience to watch Fantastic Mr. Fox for me, because there's some very melancholic moments in the movie. And at that time, it's people are leaving. So I'm remembering all these moments with friends, and some of them are, on their senior year, they're not going to come back in a few months, so I was kind of thinking through that, and it kind of, I don't know, it's kind of resonated with me, and watching it alone without friends, to kind of distract and cut up and stuff. It was the perfect viewing experience. And I just loved it. I didn't know who Wes Anderson was at the time. And I didn't look up who the director was then, because this was pre me getting into movies, but that was my first one. I loved it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always have thought Fantastic Mr. Fox is a really good introduction for sure. Me and my wife have actually, I can't remember. It seems like I've mentioned this on the podcast, maybe even on the Fantastic Mr. Fox episode, but me and my wife watch it every year on Thanksgiving, because it's it's the perfect fall movie. And we both love it. And it's it even kind of feels Thanksgiving-y, they got the feast going.
It really does. Now that you mention it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we watch it every Thanksgiving. We started it a couple years ago doing that. And so this year I'm my son's 4, I feel like he can watch it now. And so we're going to I'm even right now starting to hype it up for him. Hey, on Thanksgiving, we're going to watch Fantastic Mr. Fox. And he's very headstrong. he's never seen it before, but he's very headstrong. So he's like, no, I don't want to. And but you just got to like keep planting those seeds, getting him excited for it.
Exactly.
And by the time it comes, he'll be excited. So yeah, Fantastic Mr. Fox is great. I love Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah, and I've heard you say on the podcast that you think it's like the best intro movie for getting into Wes Anderson films, and I agree.
Yeah.
I know some people say Grand Budapest is, but
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't recommend Grand Budapest for kids,
Right, yeah.
Like, kids can't watch that movie. But Fantastic Mr. Fox, kids can watch it, adults can watch it, and everybody's going to have a good time.
Your dog can watch it,
Your dog can watch it because the animals. I love that movie. My favorite part is when they cuss at each other. They're like,
yeah.
You cussing with me? You little cuss? Cuss, 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 cuss. It's hilarious.
It really is. There's even I think I mentioned in the episode there's like a graffiti in the background in one of the scenes that just says like cuss. Yeah.
I never noticed that.
Yeah, it's in there. You got to look for it real hard, but it's in there.
I'll be looking for it next time. Maybe this Thanksgiving.
But yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, we've covered everything, and now we're on Asteroid City, and man, I feel like I haven't really felt like I needed to really do this for all the other episodes, but I do want to say from the start, before we just start discussing this, that this is a spoiler podcast. We talk about anything and everything in the movie, and if you haven't seen it, then like maybe like hit pause, go ahead and get on Fandango and buy a ticket and go watch it, and then come back, and then you can listen. Because I don't know, I don't like to spoil things for people. But some people are strange and they'll listen to stuff like this before they see it. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But
that's your thing, so be it. But you've been warned.
Yeah, you've been warned. Spoiler alert. I don't have like a siren to throw on to let people know, but yeah, that since this is like kind of still a current movie, that's just coming out. I just want to make sure everyone knows we're going to talk about everything when we get into it. So, and I don't necessarily like make a distinction between like this is non-spoiler talk and then spoiler talk. We just follow all the rabbit trails and talk about everything. So you have been warned, as Ian said. But yeah, this was fun for me because I've started doing this podcast. This is my first series, and this is the first time like I went to the theater and had to take like a notebook and a pen with me, because I was like, I've got to try to scribble some like notes in the dark so that I can remember some things that I want to remember. And I've never done that before, so that was a new experience for me, and it was fun. It was kind of fun to look at like my chicken scratch notes when I came out and try to decipher them. But yeah. What was your theater experience like for this one?
It very similar in ways. I also took a notebook, and I thought I didn't think about it at first. I was like, I'm definitely taking my notebook. I'm going to take great notes. And I get in there, I'm like, well, it's dark.
Yeah.
I didn't think about this,
Yeah.
And I like the whole time I'm like trying to like how do I take these notes?
Yeah.
And just like you, like afterwards I was trying to read my notes and I'm like, what did I write? It's just eventually I could decipher it. I'm like, oh, this is this part of the movie. I was writing that.
Yeah. You kind of have to like chronologically work through the movie and like, okay, these notes. Okay, yeah, that must be what I was saying there.
Yeah, like I still can't decipher the actual squiggles.
Right.
I know it came after this other thing that I can decipher, so I know it's this. So
that's awesome.
And like you said earlier, this is one of the few movies where I feel like I would really benefit from a second viewing. And I think most people would, because I really like just off one viewing, it's difficult to bring it all together.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen some of your notes that you've been taking. I think you've got a stronger grasp of what's going on than I did coming out, but I definitely have some thoughts on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that is just like, I do a lot of like reading and listening to what other people are saying. And so, so I have some original thoughts, but I also I also am relying on the wisdom and knowledge of others. So
Yep.
that helps a lot. Yeah, I want to start off right off the get-go with my extremely ironic theater experience. So I walk in, it's a noon. We were actually on vacation. We were in Georgia staying with my parents at my parents' house, and uh my kids were like playing with the grandparents, and I was like, I'm gonna sneak out and see this movie. And so it was like a noon showing. I walk in, there's one other guy in the theater on the back row. So it's me and this one guy. And at some point in the first act, which which act you're in because Wes, has the annotated little things in between to tell you which act you're in. So at some point in Act 1, I start hearing snoring, and I'm like, oh, great.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Like, not like terrible, but like that really like breathy, like a little bit of a wheeze kind of snoring.
The
And
worst.
I'm like, this poor guy, like, I was like, I'm just going to try to like block him out and listen and watch the movie. And it wasn't really that distracting. I was just like, I kind of felt bad for the guy because I'm like, surely if you're coming to this movie, you don't want to fall asleep. And and here you are like asleep watching it. Like, and I'm telling you, like, he was asleep for like all of Act 2 at least. And like, maybe he was like coming to here and there, but I was hearing like on and off snoring all through like Act 2. And so
there's no way he's understanding this movie.
No, not at all. He needs to see it 3 times. Maybe with some coffee before. But yeah, so he's snoring away, and then like at some point in Act 3, he like the snoring ceases, and then like probably like 10 minutes or less later is the scene where they're all like chanting, you can't wake up. You can't wake up until you've gone to sleep.
It's hilarious.
And
Perfect.
I'm just like laughing to myself because I'm like, how ironic is it? I wonder if this guy is like hearing them chant this and thinking, oh, I've been sleeping. They're like saying this straight to me. So that just like amplify that made probably what was like the least jokey part of the movie like really funny to me, which is yeah, so that's something that I will probably always remember. One of those like theater viewing experiences that moments. Like yeah, you can't get that watching it at home. So, or maybe you could, but
I think I could make it happen.
Yeah,
you can't guarantee it.
Yeah, you can get somebody sleeping, watch it with them, I guess, at home that way, but it wouldn't be as funny as it was at the theater. Yeah, so that was my theater viewing experience story for this one. Every once in a while, you get one of those stories when you go to the theater. But yeah,
that was not too bad.
It's not too bad. It's just kind of ironic,
like a disaster or something. But
no,
it kind of. I love how it worked out perfectly right before that scene.
Yeah,
he wakes up and I'm like, it's like parallel.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was just laughing to myself. You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. I'm like, well, that guy did it.
It's like he fell asleep and he woke up. Like,
yeah,
it's happening. It's happening here now.
It's happening right now. Yeah. So, but yeah, just getting into like Asteroid City, like the beginnings of it. So I was actually I was watching an interview when I was doing research for the French Dispatch, and Wes and some of the other actors were. It was like at the Lincoln Center. They were doing, like a little press thing after a showing of the movie, a screening. And Wes and some others actually like video conferenced in. So they were like on the screen at the theater after the screening. And they were like, hey, we're calling in from Spain. And I was like, what are they doing in Spain? And just wondering that in my head, not even thinking about like, oh, they were shooting Asteroid City. And so yeah, they actually shot it in Spain.
That's crazy. I
Yeah.
didn't know until today that that's where they shot. I thought it was out in California somewhere,
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
that's
think if
just
you
like Wes to do it somewhere else.
yeah. Yeah, of course. Like I'm sure he went. Yeah, it seems like there's something that was shot like in Arizona somewhere. But like that's the main set of the movie that is, quote unquote Asteroid City is yeah, that's in Spain. It's this town called I guess outside of this town called Chinchon, which is my pronunciation of it.
Probably spot on too.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Maybe I got lucky and got it right. But it's like I think I heard it's like an hour outside of Madrid. And so yeah, he was looking for like a really flat, open space, and of course, like he wasn't satisfied with. I'm sure he did like went to several locations and ended up in Spain, of course. And yeah, they just like went outside this town and built Asteroid City out there, which is
So
crazy.
I got a question about that.
Yeah.
So I was wondering this when I was watching the movie. I was like, where is this? I was like, is there like a screen out there somewhere, like on the horizon, But chances are, if they filmed it in Spain in an actual desert type area, that's the actual horizon I'm seeing. Is that
Mm-hmm.
the case?
As far as I can tell, like so, like when you watch the movie, you're like, there's definitely a lot of things fake. Like all those like big mesas are like very apparently fake. Like it's not like they're trying to make it look real. Which I love. And you actually like you can see actually screenshotted I meant to send this to you, like to send you the screenshot earlier, but I forgot. But like there's some like B-roll footage from like the making of where you can see like the back of the Mesa sets in some of them.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's what they did.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and so they built like those mesas like that. Yeah, here's another one where you can like see the back of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's like all the
So
scaffolding on the back of the mesas holding it up. Yeah, really fun. Like, and then even in this picture, I think like so like obviously if you're listening, most people listen. You can see like back there behind this really big mesa.
some commercial building back there.
Yeah, it's like a little warehouse building. I guess they built back there that I'm assuming is like the workshops and the storage and all that for the movie, which is really fun. Like hiding that behind a big rock, like fake rock structure.
I love that. So they really went out. They built basically this whole tiny little town
Oh yeah.
with the ramp and everything. The ramp to nowhere.
Yep.
It's
They built the ramp to nowhere. They built the little diner and like
hilarious.
I'm imagining like Wes probably had written out all the little signs like 25-cent hot dogs. I'm sure he had all of that exactly planned out, just based on like
Yeah.
how detailed he usually is. Um, and yeah, I think I heard or read that they did like a little mini model of it first before they went out there so that they could kind of plan it out, which makes sense. And then yeah, like I want to say there's every once in a while there's probably some green screen used just to make sure that everything looks right. But I'm pretty sure like I looked up on Google Maps this place and it is like just a wide open, like flat, nothing out there area
That's
in
awesome.
Spain. Yeah, and so I'm sure that like actually is the real horizon. And the way he shoots is like uses a lot, like Robert Yeoman, his DP does. He uses a lot of like natural soft lighting and stuff like that. And so the way he shoots was really like kind of perfect for this like pastel deserty colors he had going on.
Yeah,
But
I love that.
yeah, Chinchon, Spain is Asteroid City. Yeah, I think he worked with oh man, Adam. I wrote it down. Adam
Adam,
Stockhausen,
yeah,
who is I want to say like production designer or something on the movie. Yep, I was exactly right. I'm like scrolling Letterboxd as I'm talking to make sure
awesome.
I have the right info. But yeah, the production designer Adam Stockhausen, he like worked with him to try to make like all the buildings and whatnot on set to look more like of that time, like so
Hmm.
1950s kind of
Now,
style.
Has Wes worked with Adam Stockhausen before?
I think so. The name sounded familiar, just from research, but yeah, yeah, pull it up. Yeah, he's worked on him since Grand Budapest. Um,
Wow,
so
always
or
has.
no, since Moonrise Kingdom,
Gotcha.
Moonrise, Grand Budapest, French Dispatch, and Isle of Dogs, and then now this one.
Sweet.
So yeah, really all of them since then.
Yeah, because I saw that name and I was like, I've never heard of this guy before. But again, I like he just may have been one. Usually, I go and I look up all the crew. You know,
Hmm.
I guess his name just never stood out to me when I saw it today. That I felt like I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. So he's been his production designer, I guess, since Moonrise Kingdom. So and that's really how he works. Like he'll find a guy, and just kind of like, nope, he's part of the West crew now. You know, um, same thing. People know that from the actors, but it's the same with like his crew also.
Yeah,
Like once he find like Robert Yeoman is shot, he's been the cinematographer for all of his live action stuff.
yeah, he's this
And
guy.
yeah, and then he's used the same person for both of the stop motion features too. Um, for like cinematographer for those. Uh, yeah, it's and it really does like so. I was watching this movie and I was thinking like when you see especially like the landscape, to me I was thinking like this looks like so much like a Looney Tunes cartoon, like the colors and like the
Yeah,
fake looking mesas and rocks and stuff. And then all of a sudden there's a scene and there's this like little Roadrunner puppet like popping up and looking around, and I'm like, and I think it even says like meep meep at some point. Like, do you remember it say if it said that or not?
I
It
can't
seems like
remember, but
it seems like it did.
it it probably did. But you're right. Like the color, the landscape, and especially that Roadrunner, all evocative of Looney Tunes, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
And
thought at any moment there might be like a coyote like ran over flat on the road or something. Uh, but yeah, yeah. It definitely like reminded me of that.
yeah,
Um, and I think when the Roadrunner popped up, I was like, man, so not only does it remind me of that, like that has to be like something that he had in mind when he was making
I'm
this.
sure he did. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially coming off of some of his other movies where especially Grand Budapest, it's got this storybook feel. I could definitely see him drawing from something else that maybe he watched Looney Tunes as a child. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I would imagine he did. Like didn't we all,
it was my jam.
um yeah, so yeah, so that like that's it's pretty typical. Like Wes really does try to make it like I think in one of the interviews he was kind of talking about just like he tries to make his sets like as real and tangible as he can. Not just because like that's what he prefers and he prefers like how it looks and stuff, but also he was just saying like he feels like it helps his actors
Hmm.
because they have like something real and tangible to like work around and within, like it's a tangible space that they can like act in, not just like obviously like green screens or like, you know, that sort of thing.
It, like, I love that Wes does that. You know, it's one of my favorite things about him. And any director who chooses practical props, practical effects, um, you know, I can tell. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like 99% of the time, I'm gonna tell. I'll be able to notice which one is which, and the real one will look better in almost all of those cases.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think I remember when I was watching interviews for Moonrise Kingdom, he was talking about like the flood scene and how he was like, well, yeah, like I could CGI it, or I could like make a miniature and like do that. And he was like, either way, you're gonna know it's fake. And so this is just like I prefer the way this looks over the way that fake CGI looks like.
exactly.
Um, because like at the end of the day, like, you know, they're not actually like flooding a whole area. Like
Yeah.
it's either CGI or they like built a model. And so
Yeah. And
he
it
he was
just
like,
looks like
yeah,
much better.
yeah. And it's, I feel like, you know, it's more fun too, to do like the
Mhm.
real thing. Yeah, I, I thought like, yeah. So I thought like when you first get into, which I guess we'll get into like the movie a little bit later, but like when you get the introduction, not like the first introduction, which we'll get into the layers, but like when you actually get into Asteroid City,
Mhm.
um, the stuff that you see like in the trailer, which is like the main chunk of the film is there. Uh, that opening, like just like coming into it, and then like the whole like 360, like looking around at
Mhm.
everything. Um, I just felt like that was just like, for one, it looks incredible.
Mhm.
It was fun to like just get introduced to the town that way,
Mhm.
and I think it's like, I don't know. Everyone's been doing these like TikTok and Instagram things of like, oh, like if I just stand in the middle of the frame and do things symmetrical, then I'm doing what Wes Anderson does. And like
It's so
it's I mean, it's, I guess it's fun for people to do, and some of them are kind of funny, but like this, like that shot was like, okay, this is like Wes showing like, no, like no one can do this. Like
yeah.
this is unique. Like this is unique to me. That, you know, all of the people that are doing that, like if they really think, if they're just having fun, like great. But if they really think they're like actually like imitating what Wes does, it's like no. Like, and that, I think that shot really like shows like the
Mhm.
incredible amount of like work he puts into like what he puts on screen, you know.
Yeah. And I
Um
love anytime I can see Wes Anderson in the process of filming and giving advice and, you know, saying, you can see him like talking to actors. I love seeing all that behind the scenes footage because you could tell he's just got it dialed in. He knows exactly what he wants. Like he has the vision in his head, and get. He's either gonna get it or he's gonna get pretty dang close.
mhm.
You know. So, and I just love that about him. His just attention to detail, and you're right about the center frame thing. I know that's what everybody thinks, but it's more than that, you know. And it
Right.
comes from his vision. He's got something unique. It's not just putting, you know, the foreground subject in the center of the frame.
Mhm.
You know, if it was that easy, then lots of movies would look like Wes Anderson's, but they don't. You
Right.
know, so anyway, he's one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean he's one of the best of, you know, our generation for sure. And you know, I've talked about before on the podcast, like he really like created his own unique voice like in cinema, even though like he's pulling from, you know, just tons of influences.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like he takes those influences and just like kind of recreates them. He like, it's like he puts them through the filter of his like imaginative Wes Anderson mind. And so you can see like, oh, I guess I can see how like this French cinema or this like, or like, I don't know, Steven Spielberg like influenced this. Like, I mean, you have the Alien, which, you know, isn't technically a spoiler because apparently they put it in the trailer, which I'm glad I don't watch trailers that often because the Alien was a fun surprise.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, you know, like you're watching that and you're like, this is kind of feels Spielbergy in a way, but it's not Spielberg. It's 100% Wes Anderson. But you know, like he had Spielberg in mind, but it's like filtered through his mind and his imagination, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, what I tell people is if you want to watch something, you know, that's like a Wes Anderson movie, you have to watch a Wes Anderson movie.
Right.
Because there's nothing else that no one else does what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
there really isn't any like, there's no other films I can think of that are like a whole lot like Wes Anderson. Like I think the closest one to me is actually Paddington 2. Feels like it feels in some sections very much like a Wes Anderson movie.
See, I still need to watch it. I've seen Paddington 1 and I really liked it.
Yeah.
So I want to watch Paddington 2.
Yeah, Paddington 2 is even better to me.
Really? It's better?
Yeah, it's better. So there's like a whole prison sequence where, you know, Paddington is in prison and which isn't a huge spoiler. That's pretty early on. It's but like that whole like section of the movie just like feels like not like Wes made it, but that like, you know, if Wes was in the room, like he definitely had some influence, which I don't think that's the case, but it gives off the vibe.
Man, I need to see this movie.
Yeah. So whenever we get done here, like, you know, stay up extra super late and just watch Paddington 2. Like, don't sleep tonight. Just watch Paddington 2.
Deal. That'll go great for my meeting in the morning.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, yeah, he has his own unique voice, and he really has his own like I don't know, one of the things that I think is starting to pop up a lot, especially like in the interview rounds that I've been seeing for Asteroid City, is like and I don't know, like maybe it's just because it's out right now and so I'm like constantly seeing stuff, but I don't remember seeing a ton of stuff for past movies where like all of the actors are just talking about how much they love working with Wes. Like I'm sure they did, but it seems like in this like press cycle, they're like really like they're talking about all the things he does that makes it a great experience, and like, which is, I think is just one of my through this series has become one of my favorite things about Wes Anderson is just, you can tell when you do like research on the background of all these movies that he's having like he's just having a great time. And because he's having such a great time, he creates an environment where like everyone that he's working with is having a great time. Even, you know, obviously there's like crunch times when you have movies like making a movie, but like I feel like the large portion of it is like, you know, we're hanging out, having a good time. I know for like a lot of his movies, the crew really stays like all together. Like the cast and the crew, they stay together. Like I think in this one, he was like, yeah, we would like, you know, all go back to the hotel or whatever, and then like take golf carts back over to set and work, and like they're eating meals together, and
man, that's fun.
Yeah, right. It's like camp.
Yeah.
Which me and Ian met. I mean, we worked at a conference center in the summers, so like,
yeah, it's just like that. You know,
just like, you know, we would finish our work and go back to our dorm and like eat a meal together, hang out, like, and that's kind of like how Wes Anderson, working on a Wes Anderson film is. He even said like, so that, you know, they have the little cowboy troupe with Jarvis Cocker, who's been done some music in a few Wes movies. And then Seo George, who did all the Bowie songs for Zissou. He was one of the cowboys. And Wes even said, like, sometimes at the end of the day, they'd be like having their meal, and like Seo George or Jarvis Cocker would like pull out a guitar and sing some songs. So I mean, it's just like, it sounds like
environments where you kind of want to be there. Like,
yeah, I'm like, I want to go.
Like, I don't even have to be part of anything. Just let me be there.
Yeah,
I'll just follow y'all, and we'll have a good time.
Yeah, I'll just sit at the table. I won't even say anything. I'll just sit there and smile and listen.
Just let me exist in your presence.
Yeah. Yeah, it just sounds like, I don't know, when you think of like these auteur filmmakers, like I feel like a lot of people think of them like as like very like self-serious and like focused and just like not fun. But really, like, you all, like, time after time with these movies, I hear like the opposite in my research about Wes, which is like he's lively and energetic, like he's laughing and having a good time. And
it's telling that actors agree to come back and work with him again and again.
Right.
Because if I was an actor and I hated the director, it might be a once-off.
Right. Right.
And I'm sure, most actors are like that. If they can't stand the director, they're like, not doing it again. Probably.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But one exception would be I think the one exception that didn't work out, for Wes would be Royal Tenenbaums with Gene Hackman. Apparently
Gene Hackman didn't like him.
Yeah, apparently him and Gene Hackman didn't get along. I think it just feels like Gene Hackman just didn't understand what Wes is about, which I guess I get that. And he's like the sort of actor that he's one of those sorts of actors that like doesn't want your notes, but with a Wes movie, like, it's so like precise, like you kind of have to like follow his, like, what Wes wants you to do.
Yeah.
Apparently him and Gene Hackman didn't work the best together, but it turned out great. The movie turned out great.
The movie was great.
Yeah. And his character was great. Like, one of the best Wes characters, probably, I would say.
Yeah, I had no idea that Gene didn't like it.
Yeah. I don't know how opposed they were, but there was definitely like a lot of like frustration, at the very least, who knows if they were actually like didn't like each other, but yeah, definitely just one of those, like, he works one way, he works a different way, and they don't necessarily want to bend a whole lot, sort of thing.
If Wes definitely isn't going to bend. Anyway, and I love that about him.
And I think that's one thing that I was hearing in some like cast interviews, is just how there's, so like a lot of times when they go to work on a movie, you're sitting there or whatever you're doing for the set or that scene or whatever, and the director has lines written, but like they really want the actors to like take hold of the parts, maybe change some things, put their own whatever in it. And with a Wes movie, it's like, no, like he has the lines are written exactly like how he wants them written, and like the rhythm, even like the pace, like I think Bryan Cranston was saying, like he did like the opening monologue for the movie, and Wes was like, yeah, that was really good. Now I just need you to say it a lot, way faster. And so like he's like, he even has like the pace of how he wants it, like, that's in great. His head, I guess. Like I kind of doubt he writes like beats per minute on the script, but in his mind he has. Yeah, maybe that's one thing I could suggest to Wes, is just like, get a metronome. set it
Start
up.
driving people crazy. That's kind of similar to like complete opposite personality wise. Stanley Kubrick, like he was very precise with his movies. I don't think he knew. Sometimes he didn't know exactly what he wanted until
Mhm.
he found it. But so I guess it is different. But they're both very. They're not going to budge. I'd
Mhm.
rather work with Wes than Stanley
Yeah.
Kubrick.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And you when you do enough research into Wes, you start seeing like, oh, well, he has a lot of like happy surprises and like
Mhm.
things that go wrong where he has to work around stuff, and he's happy to.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Even when things like the preciseness of what he wants to happen doesn't work out, he's like excited to figure out a new way to do it,
Hmm.
or to make it look like similar to what he wanted, that sort of thing. And so, but yeah, and I think part of it is like, so, I've talked before on the podcast about ever since Fantastic Mr. Fox, he's made the animatics, which is basically like they sketch out the storyboards and like animate out all or most of the movie in like these little sketches. And Wes will like do the voices for all like the characters for those. And so, but the actors get to see this, and the you know the crew gets to watch this, and so they know exactly where the camera needs to be to get this
Mhm.
shot, because you can see it in the animatic. The actors can kind of get a sense of like the pace of the scene and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And so like really like I think it was Jeffrey Wright was just talking about how because of that, like he's such an efficient filmmaker. That's
Mhm.
how he can like have these fairly low budget films. Like these aren't huge budgets that he's
Yeah.
working with, and still have like such a huge cast of like like it's not like just a big cast. It's a big cast of like stars.
Yeah. I was like looking down the list. It's
Yeah.
like tons of big names.
Yeah. All of them could be the star, the
Yeah.
lead. Um, but he's so efficient. They know like my time isn't going to be wasted. Like
Mhm.
I'm going to show up, I'm going to like get my stuff done, and I'll be able to go because Wes already has everything ready and set up and ready to go. And so, yeah, I think all of that just like creates, I think I heard a few different actors just talk about how like, yes, like there's a lack of like improv sort of stuff going on. There's a lack of like being able to like do kind of your own thing as far as like the lines and the pace. But then because of those constraints, there's like a freedom within it to kind of bring your own like little taste that only you can bring as an actor
Mhm.
into the part. And like I said, like, oh, I'm going to be able to jump in, like get going and do my things. And like my time isn't going to be wasted. We're not going to be doing like a million takes of this one shot, like, because he's got it all ready and planned out. So, which, just like putting myself in an actor's shoe, and even like the cast, like, I'm like, oh, like, I'm glad he does so much work on the front end planning everything so that
Mhm.
when we get on set, like we're like moving. But yeah. Uh I did want to also like point out that this was shot during COVID. Like there were still like COVID protocols going on when this was being shot there in Spain. And so which is I think it was the Cannes Film Festival press conference that I watched where someone had asked about like the quarantine in the movie. And Wes was kind of saying, the writing process is probably the most improv part of the whole process for him.
Mhm.
I think he wrote this with Roman Coppola, just one co-writer for this one. But yeah, so obviously like you're writing and you have to kind of rewrite some stuff, kind of shift stuff around. And so for Wes, this is the part that's like the most like improvisational. Like once it's written, it's like pretty much like set.
Yeah.
but yeah, so he was talking about they were writing this when like COVID came along and there was quarantine and, COVID protocols. And so he just kind of said, yeah, like the quarantines part of the movie probably wouldn't have been in there without like that happening. So that, it's definitely like the influence, like it's pretty apparent that there's like COVID influence going on here.
Mhm.
And it's
And
fun
it
to
makes
hear him
sense
talk
with the
about.
story.
Say
Oh,
that
sorry.
again.
Oh no, I'm saying, but it makes sense with the story. So
Yeah.
it's kind of worked out perfectly. But it also makes sense. It's on his mind. It's like at that time, it's like what you're hearing, seeing everywhere. So
Mm-hmm.
it makes total sense it's in the movie, and it works with the plot.
Yeah, yeah. And I wonder like so like for this one there's not for like his past movies there's more like interviews and stuff that I can watch. So for this one there's not quite as much out there yet. And so I didn't really find anything that where he was talking about like the influences, the big so usually there's like 2 to 4 things that were like these are the things that I like mushed together to make this movie. Uh, but obviously that's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder like if there were some other. I wonder if this would have been a very different movie if like COVID hadn't happened. Because I mean he already like said that the quarantine section is definitely influenced by it. Um, and then like some of the other themes of like that kind of isolation
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of stuff going on. But yeah, it's just cool to see. Like, I wonder how much they had written, or if they maybe started writing when after COVID had already started. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, but like it's definitely clear that it had a huge influence on the movie, maybe even from the beginning. But if there was another script that existed before, I'd be interested to see like what else he had planned. Like,
Yeah,
but I appreciate what he did here.
yeah, for sure. And he actually in that press conference he was kind of like talking about how COVID and like COVID protocols actually like suited how he likes to shoot movies. He was like I'm not saying it's like good for the movie, but I'm just saying we took something bad and it was and it was good for us the way we used
Yeah.
it. But yeah, like he likes to shoot with like small cast and crew, and it's like he just likes to shoot in an intimate setting. He doesn't like people going off to trailers and stuff. He likes everybody to come in and do their work all together. And really like it helps because obviously like there's sequences where you have a lot of people where you have to it's not as intimate just because there's a lot of people in that scene. But a lot of you can kind of see a lot of his scenes like are just like him and a few like cast and crew shooting that scene, and he can take the time like you said, you notice the way he like interacts with people, and kind of those making of
Mm-hmm.
little things. It allows him to like have those intimate interactions with people. And so really like COVID protocols are like, yeah, no problem. This is how I like to shoot movies anyway.
And honestly, like when I hear it described, I'm like, that does sound nice. Like that intimate setting. We're all in doing this together. Like I'm like, I like that. That sounds good. Like it. Not that you need quarantine conditions to do it, but
You're right.
but without it, I'm sure there would be people who are like, well, I'm just going to have my trailer.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think Scarlett Johansson was saying like, for her, it makes it feel more like stage play theater,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not like going off to a trailer like a lot. She was like, it's just different. She was like, a lot of movie sets like you go off to your trailer, do your own thing. But she's like, for when you shoot like this with Wes, like you really like you gain momentum. Like you're not going off to the trailer. You're staying right there,
Mm-hmm.
and like and doing your shots and your takes. And like, it's when you go off to a trailer, like it kind of stops the momentum of like, of your flow, I guess, with your acting. I wouldn't know because I'm not an actor, but that's what
It makes
Scarlett
sense.
Johansson said. So
Like if you know you're about to go back to a trailer and you're going to do that a few times, like you're kind of expecting it. Like, and so I know for myself, I would mentally be in a different place. When I know I'm just doing one thing for like 4 hours, like I approach that way differently than if I'm going to have like sporadic, intermissions,
right.
throughout, so I like going into like a whole big thing. I'm like, I can do this fully. I can let myself fully do it,
Right,
without having to expect the next thing. So yeah, so I definitely understand that.
yeah, and that's why, like, for this podcast, I make sure we have like a little bathroom break in the middle, but we're just like, we're going, no trailers, intimate setting. It's the best way to do a podcast, I think. But yeah. So one of the things that I did not know before watching this that kind of came up when I was doing research was that, because I was wondering, like, Bill Murray has been in every Wes Anderson movie since Rushmore, and he wasn't in this one. And I was like,
where is he?
Yeah, like I was like, I wonder why Bill Murray isn't in this one. He doesn't seem like he's like doing a whole lot of other movies. It's not like he's, working on something else and has to decline Wes, because it feels like he would do the opposite because he likes to work with Wes so much.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so apparently when they were, getting ready to go shoot or whatever, Bill Murray got COVID. And so he was like, I don't know, on vacation, I think in Ireland is what I read, with his family, and got COVID. And so I think so he was slated to play the hotel manager that Steve Carell played. And so
Steve Carell did great, but
yeah, he did really good. And I felt like he, because he's not improving, more constrained, like he fit really well with the role. But yeah, that's what Bill Murray was slated to play, and I think Steve Carell had to come in kind of last minute to do it.
I was really sad when Bill Murray wasn't in the movie, because he's one of my favorite parts of every Wes Anderson movie that he's in.
Yeah,
just because I think he nails it.
Oh
like,
yeah,
every role he's in, I'm like, he nailed that, and he nailed that, and anyway, he's just, I don't know what he's got, but he's got the magic.
Yeah,
at least for me. Like, I love any scene with Bill Murray in a Wes
Anderson movie. Yeah, he's just, I think he just understands what Wes is doing. They're just like on the same wavelength, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he wasn't in the movie. But whenever I guess he got done with his COVID protocol stuff, he actually still went to the set and was like on set and like hanging out and stuff, which sounds very Bill Murray.
Which I don't blame him. I did the same thing, It's like, well, I was already planning to go, and I know how Wes operates, so I'm just going to go and just hang out.
Yeah. And so I think Wes was like, it seems like it was like a New Yorker interview, was just saying like, once you started like shooting a movie, it's hard to like add extra characters in. And so he just couldn't figure out a way to get them into the movie. But they did shoot a little short with Bill Murray as this like extra character. I think I wrote down the character's name. I did not. Anyway, he's like it's like a little short where he's like introducing the stage play, like I don't know. It's so hard to keep track of all the layers. The Asteroid City section of the movie, he's like introducing it. So he's playing, he's like playing a guy that was supposed to play a certain part in the movie. And he's introducing the movie and like interviewing he's kind of like, yeah, unfortunately the editorial team had to cut my section of the movie. I'm no, I'm not in the movie.
Sounds like something that could have been in the movie, honestly.
Right. It does actually. But then he brings on Schwartzman's character, like he calls, but I do have with me, Jones Hall, who plays Augie Steenbeck in the movie. Yeah, he's and he like kind of does like a fake interview with Jones Hall about the Asteroid City movie.
Is this on YouTube? I need to look this up.
It's not. So I was looking for it and I couldn't find it, but then I realized it's like exclusive to the New Yorker article that it's with. So
Really?
I'll have to shoot you a link.
Yeah, because I want to see it.
Yeah, so I've already read, like, apparently looked at a New Yorker article, and like the paywall was like, oh, you've already looked at.
You've used your one.
Right. And so I just opened it in private mode and the cookies weren't there. So it didn't know that
I
smart
didn't know you
thinking.
could do that.
Yep. It doesn't always work, but a lot of times it does.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, so I was able, it's like at the top of the article, it has it's like 3 minutes, and like Schwartzman as Jones Hall as Augie does like talks about, like he I feel like I wrote it down what he says, but it's really funny. This is the portion of the podcast where I flip my pages. He's like Jones, tell us about the movie, and he's just like kind of deadpan, is like, this is a movie for our times, 1955, about people like you and me, and then just like stops. and Bill Murray's like, made up characters like, can you tell us more? And like,
it sounds hilarious.
And then he just like starts naming like thematic words like that in the movie, like, and counting them off on his fingers. Yeah, it was actually really funny. But yeah, so they they ended up finding a way to do something with Bill Murray, which was this like little exclusive short that's on this New Yorker article that I couldn't find anywhere else.
Yeah, I need to see that.
Oh yeah. So I appreciated that. He was like, I got to do something with my boy Bill.
I'm glad they did.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, man, this one, we haven't really gotten into like the actual film, just kind of background stuff, but yeah, there's layers here for sure.
How many layers did you count, by the way?
So let me think. So there's the TV broadcast that feels like it's like a documentary about the production of
that's the black and white part.
Yeah, so there's like the only thing that was in color that I remember is like the actual Asteroid City portion. Which is like, so did you notice before you saw the movie so this is something I noticed, I guess like a week or two before it came out, was that all like the posters had Asteroid City in quotes, like the title.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, like go back and look. There's the only one that's not is like the billboard, but that's not like a movie poster. It's just like a picture of the billboard.
Yeah.
But like if you look at all the movie posters, Asteroid City is in quotes. So like I think technically the name of the movie is in quotations.
That's interesting. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because it's a play. And I guess like grammatically you put plays in quotes. I don't know. I can't remember what you learned in high school.
So there's a TV like program that
kind of
introduces like.
It's like it's almost like a documentary introducing the it's like a dramatization of the play. like it feels like it's not actually like the play, but it's like a dramatization of the play.
Because we see Edward Norton play.
Mm-hmm.
He's cast as the playwright.
Yeah, he's the playwright, and I think that's the thing. Like, so the structure of this is so like layered, and I'm still not positive. Like I'm still not, I don't think, able with my one viewing to like map everything out.
Yeah, I can't either. Yeah.
But somehow it's still like, I don't know, it's like it's kind of confusing in structure, but somehow it's still like, you don't feel lost somehow, which is a strange feeling to like not exactly know how these layers are working, but you still feel like you're getting all the information you need.
Yeah, I think having the big color section, having that is like, okay, well, I know this is one big thing. And that it's when it cuts to like the black and white, because I think in the black and white sections, there's at least 2 layers, because there's sometimes you're watching the playwright writing or trying to conceptualize his play,
right?
And other times you're watching the cast that he's found for his play acting it out. At another time you're watching the TV broadcast introducing the play, and then I think there's even another one, because the Margot Robbie scene,
right? Yeah, so at the end of towards the end of the movie, towards the end of Act 3, Jones Hall, who's Augie in the Asteroid City play, like literally like walks out to like backstage, and that feels like it's not necessarily like part of any of the broadcasts or any of the like stuff. It just feels like you're just watching the actor walk backstage and like have a discussion with the director, and then having the discussion with the actress that was supposed to play his wife, that was Margot Robbie,
right?
And so that's like a whole nother layer that like is kind of more of I think it feels like the most meta of all the layers.
Yeah, because that was like way out there. Because in the play, like in the actual, in the movie, in the actual dramatization, Margot Robbie is photographed as the deceased wife,
right?
But then during the play, when he's when he's actually performing the play, he walks off stage because he's having like almost a mental break, and he has to walk out on the balcony, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's after. I think it's after he talks to Adrian Brody as the director.
Yeah.
Then he walks out onto the balcony,
and there's Margot Robbie. He sees this other theater actress who was supposed to play his deceased wife. You know what I'm saying?
But her scene got cut.
The scene got cut, and I'm like, so what am I watching here? It's like, is this like, what is this part of?
Yeah, she even like delivers the monologue that was supposed to be in that scene. Yeah, and that like we'll probably get into all that later, but that was like to me that was like that whole part where he walks out was like what tied everything together for me.
I need to hear your thoughts on this later when we talk about it then.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm interested to hear.
Yeah, and we'll get to it, but yeah, the layers. And so I was going to say too about the layers is it feels like this is in his last few movies has become like a new like Wes Anderson distinctive. So like you have all the ways that like Wes makes movies that are like distinct. Like people talk about the symmetry, which is for sure a thing. People talk about, the dollhouse stuff, which is a thing. The whip pans like have always been like a Wes thing. But this feels like a new like Wes distinctive of creating movies that have like these like peel back meta layers in them. Like
this one definitely has the most that he's the ones he's done.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for Grand Budapest, obviously, I think that was where it started. You have the framing. It's the framing devices too. Like he started making movies like that have a framing device. Obviously, Grand Budapest, you have like the author that's thinking back on when he met F. Murray Abraham's character Zero, and then it goes back to another layer. Like, so you have the layers there in Grand Budapest. French Dispatch, you have the layers between like the writers writing the stories and then the stories being dramatized themselves, sort of thing. But yeah, this one is the most like complex for sure so far.
Oh, yeah.
But it's definitely like, okay, I guess I can expect this sort of thing in Wes Anderson movies from now on, is like these layers that you have to like peel back. And it sounds like it's too much, and maybe it is for some people, like we were talking earlier about like how to introduce people to Wes Anderson, and this definitely isn't one I would start with. But like, I don't know, it's just weird that a movie that has such a like strange, complicated layering structure of like framing devices, that while I didn't like figure out exactly while I was watching what exactly was going on with all that, I still was able to like grasp what Wes was doing with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, which is a very, tricky line to walk, but I had the same experience. At the end of it, I was like, I can't say I understand everything I
Right.
just watched, but I'm walking away with what I'm pretty sure is the main things Wes wanted me to take away.
Sure.
Which I'm sure that was his goal,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And it even, I feel like he tells you, like in some of the lines that happen in some of those meta parts, like, like I think it's when Augie's like walking back, or I guess he's Jones Hall at that point, is walking backstage and he's passing someone, and they're like, it's a metaphor. Well, what's the metaphor? And he's like, well, we don't know yet. And like, which is like, that's kind of how you feel when you walk out. Like, you're excited and you feel like, yeah, I got it. And then, but if someone like asked you like, well, what was it? You're kind of like, well, I guess I don't exactly know yet. Give me some time on that one. But you still, it somehow, like, I guess emotionally resonates still somehow. Which is what it feels like, Jones Hall is dealing with. Like, I don't exactly, he tells Adrian Brody's director character, like, I don't understand this play. Like, I still don't understand it. Like, he's been acting in it for how long now? And it's Act 3. And, he's like, I still don't understand this character or this play. And it feels like you feel like you're with him. You're like, yeah, me either. It feels like he's speaking for you as the viewer, as well as himself in that moment.
But then, well, maybe we're going to get into this later, that whole scene.
Yeah, we will. We will, but we can talk about it now too.
Yeah. So, Adrian Brody says to him, you're playing him right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just he says, like, keep doing it or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think, him not knowing was how it was supposed to be played at that time. Like, I think that was part of it. Which kind of, I think, connects with one of the themes of the movie, which we can get into later or now.
Let's jump into it. Why not?
Why not? So let me go to. Oh yeah, so some of the themes. I mean, just everything seems to be in process. People are in process in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to figure something out. That's
right.
what most of the characters are doing, and there's even a lot of symbolism in the movie of things in process. The train, the chase, like the ongoing kind of cops chasing the criminals thing.
Right.
These are things that aren't resolved, and by the end of the movie, they still aren't because they're in process. So it kind of reflects what the actors are going through, and the people, like the characters who are playing the stage version as well, especially what's his name, Hall, like Joe Hall, whatever.
Yeah, I don't remember. Who's that? Who's the real actor?
Schwartzman.
Oh yeah, Jones. Yeah, Jones.
Jones. Yeah, I'm getting the name wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's a weird name.
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes sense. It's not, that wasn't something that I was prominent in my mind. I don't think walking away was like, or maybe it was, but just in different terms. But yeah, like that being in process, is, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Just thinking about, I think part of it is in the play, like in the Asteroid City section, the color section, like they're all there for various reasons, obviously. But when the alien shows up and throws everything for a loop, and then they're like stuck there, it kind of like throws everything out of whack. Like whatever plans or control they were planning on having over their time there, like it was thrown out the window. And so then they're all just like stuck there, and they don't really have like full control over their lives at that point.
Yeah.
And so that's where like, yeah, the unresolved nature of it kind of, I feel like, comes in. Because really, like at the end of the film, like the alien takes like the little meteorite, but then like, and at the end of Act 3, he like shows back up and like puts it back. And they had like just canceled the quarantine. They were like, the quarantine's over. And then the alien shows back up. And then like, yeah, so there's like not really a resolve there almost. It's weird. But then he wakes up and like everyone else has left. And so it's a strange, like, I don't exactly know what's going on with all that.
There are parts of it that are almost dreamlike.
Yes.
Just in terms of, like, especially what you just mentioned of how, like the alien comes back, puts the thing back, and then, like, Augie wakes up and everybody's gone. And it's like a little bit disjointed, like dreams are. And I don't know. It's a fun movie to try to figure out.
Yeah.
And
the dreamlike thing, though, I think is interesting because, it does have that line that they repeat in kind of it's in the playwright section. The playwright's telling this little class that has some of his actors in it, that he was thinking about writing a section of the movie where everyone like is asleep and dreaming or something. And like everyone starts like showing how good they are at like acting, being asleep. And then like that, and then it's Edward Norton as the playwright starts like saying that line. What is it? I think I wrote it down. You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. Like they start kind of like chanting it almost. And it does like bring to mind that idea of like life as a waking dream. Is one thing it made me think of, which I'm not sure if that's like a quote from literature or from just someone famous. It feels like it is. But yeah, it feels like it comes from somewhere, but I Googled like life as a waking dream and I couldn't really find anything. So I'm at a loss.
I feel like it's happened before, but I can't place it.
But yeah, like that idea of like life as a waking dream where like we're all a little bit unsure of exactly, how things are going to play out, what's happening at any given moment. But also, it felt like, art, just that idea that like art, in whatever form it might take, like helps us to see the world. And like art naturally has a dreamlike quality to it. Like when you're watching a movie, like it's not real, but it kind of becomes real as you're watching it, just like a dream does. Like if you're dreaming, a lot of times you realize like I'm dreaming and I know this isn't real, but it feels real in the moment. And like, in that dream like state, you're going to wake up, and like, hopefully I guess the hope is that when you wake up from that dream, whether it's like, literal dreaming or, the dreamlike state of watching a movie, quote unquote, I guess the hope is that you'll wake up, I guess, literally, but also like metaphorically to like something new, learn something about yourself and the world, is kind of like something that, and I didn't get that when I walked out. I've just been thinking about what was that line all about. And that's like the best answer I can come up with.
I'm actually glad you said that, because I was going to ask you, like, what did you think about that line? Because when I walked out, I was like, I don't know. I know it means something. I just didn't know what, at the time. So
yeah, and I'm not confident in that answer. I honestly don't know. That's just like the best I've got.
You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. So I was thinking something similar, like, a lot of times, like maybe saying it's okay to be, like to be in a mental state where there's uncertainty, and things aren't resolved, because that's, a theme in the movie, especially during like the quarantine section. And maybe like going through that helps you in a sense wake up, find resolution later on. This is just a big maybe, but so, but that's kind of what it made me think of.
Yeah, and that makes sense too. Just with everything else going on in the movie, there's so much, like you said, uncertainty about everything. I mean, literally like the thing that the junior stargazers, like they all put boxes on their heads and look up at a cosmic ellipsis. It's like these three, I guess, like stars that line up just right. And they have to look through it so that it doesn't get like burned into their eyes, like the Tilda Swinton character. But yeah, I mean, it's a cosmic ellipsis, which like it's an ellipsis. An ellipsis is like, it's all about uncertainty. You don't like, it's a punctuation about uncertainty. You don't know what's coming after, like it's a pause, like a break, like,
I mean, all you know is that it continues.
Yeah. Right. I mean, ellipsis is like, I'm going to ... Yeah. Like you don't, that's an ellipsis represents uncertainty, I feel like, in certain ways.
It does. I mean, it's not really like a question mark. It's more like, it's more the experience, like you're about to get the answer.
Right.
But you're in the experience of in between,
Yeah. It's almost like a little to be continued punctuation.
Yeah.
So it's
the there was
cliffhanger.
Lots of symbolism in the movie.
Yeah.
Like hidden in there. So.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's like, going back to that line I pointed out where the guy's like, it's a metaphor. We don't know what for yet, and I feel like that's how art often works though. I mean, you can watch, we're watching this movie and we're taking away these things, but like when we watch this 10 years from now, like it'll be with totally new eyes, with totally new perspectives. And we'll probably take away something totally different, like removed from the context we're in now.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how art works.
Which is definitely art, because it's one of the movies, some movies I watch and I don't think about, like I watch it, I'm like, oh, that was fun.
Right.
And then the other movies I watch, and which is fine. Some movies, that's all they need to be. But there's other movies I watch and I don't expect them to stay with me, but I just find myself thinking about it, like, sometimes like day after day. And sometimes, I think the longest one was The Banshees of Inisherin last year. which the first time I watched it, I hated it. At the end of the movie, my first viewing, I hated it, but I couldn't get it out of my mind for like, I thought about it for like a month. And by the end of the month, I was just thinking about these characters, and I was like, oh, this one did a really good job. And I was just thinking about all the characters in the movie. And after a month, I was like, I've been thinking about it this much. I guess I like the movie.
Yeah.
You know, and this one's similar. You know, that kind of clues me in that I'm watching art. This is art. It's sticking with me. And so the same thing with this movie. It's something that I've been returning to and thinking about, just because there's lots in there that I'm trying to process still.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the joys of it's one of the things I love finding movies like that.
Right.
Yeah. One of the joys of watching film.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things when you find a movie that just like you can't get out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, I think that's one of the things that makes real art is that it's something that I feel like artists do when they're creating is, especially in this capacity, is they're more interested in asking questions than answering, than giving answers. And then on top of that, like art asks questions and then wants you to just like experience the emotions that come from asking those questions.
Yeah.
Which I guess it feels like that's what happens in this movie, because I did feel when the movie like really started getting into that third act and the whole sequence we've been talking about where Schwartzman's character walks off set, like that part, that whole section of the movie felt like I don't know, he felt like a stand-in for you in that section. Mm-hmm. Like he doesn't understand what's going on, but he feels the questions and he feels like the emotions that are like coming with those questions. And that, it just feels, I just love that whole.
That scene was perfectly placed timed in the movie to, reflect what I was feeling at that exact time.
Yeah.
So I feel like Wes very intentionally placed it right there. Like it's like 2/3. You might hear my daughter in the background. I don't know.
No worries.
But yeah, so I feel like he placed it very specifically right there to represent and reflect what we were feeling as an audience member.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that came up in interviews was like Wes just talking about how actors like fascinate him. Like it's one of the reasons he loves making movies is because he just like is fascinated by how these people like are coming together on screen and they're creating this, I don't know, this thing that is very much like, it's very strange and intimate and like interesting to him. Mm-hmm. And so like he loves creating this, I guess, these films and environments where like he can watch these actors do their work, which is really cool, like to hear. Mm-hmm. And I think that maybe, going back to our discussion of like why people come back to work with him, that's probably one of the reasons is because like they get that sense that and I think even like Jeffrey Wright or somebody in an interview like talked about how you really feel like he appreciates actors. Mm-hmm. And like, he said some directors you'll work with and, you're just there to like make their movie. But with Wes, like, he like appreciates what I'm doing and the craft and the skill that goes into it, sort of thing.
Yeah. And you mentioned Jeffrey Wright. He's one of the standouts in the movie for me. And you're right. I saw an interview where he said, at first he wasn't really into the movie before they started filming. Mm-hmm. Like he was just like, okay, And I think this was the first time he's worked with Wes.
No, he was in The French Dispatch.
He was? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I still haven't seen that one, by the way. So, but yeah, he said he, wasn't really into the movie, but once it got started, you know, he enjoyed it. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I think Wes's personality and his value for the actors, uh, you know, has a huge impact on, on them. So,
Yeah, yeah, and that feels like there. It feels like something of an ode to acting, like this movie does. Just like watching Schwartzman's character, like really, like he's. I don't know. I feel like there's a degree to which acting is so hard because it takes a certain kind of person that really like is interested in like digging into the human psyche and like what makes us human, and like trying to tap into that to like perform that whatever they're trying to like tap into. And so yeah, it is like a very particular art form acting is. And this movie in a way feels like an ode to that. It's almost like Wes Anderson's like love letter to actors. Like I understand, like I appreciate what you do, and I know like that there's a lot of like emotion and like difficulty that goes into it, sort of thing.
I hadn't thought about it like that as like an ode to acting, but now I'm glad you said that because that fits.
Yeah.
There's lots of scenes in there like the Jason Schwartzman as the not as Augie, but as the theater actor.
Mm-hmm.
Everything he's going through sometimes, and then like with Margot Robbie, sometimes your scene gets cut. Like so, so stuff like that happens. Sometimes, or like even with Bryan Cranston, sometimes you're in the scene you're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
In the scene,
which was funny.
So like, there's lots of little things in there. Like that. Now that you said that, I'm thinking, yeah, that's there.
Mm-hmm.
So really cool.
Yeah, and even like Jeffrey Wright's character, the general guy, like he was playing it a certain way, and Wes like gave him the note of like, hey, hey, this guy is like, he's an actor, but like he's not a great actor, and like he's really trying really hard to be an actor, and like so. And I feel like that kind of comes across, like, because he has these like very like over the top reactions to everything that happens.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah,
yeah. Which I didn't know when I was watching it, but like hearing that in an interview, I was like, oh, that actually makes sense.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love watching Jeffrey Wright in this movie because it just looked like he was having fun.
Oh yeah.
Doing it. But if Wes was telling him like, hey, you're playing a an okay actor, he's trying really hard. Like I could totally see that. That's hilarious.
But yeah, it really like, and I think one of the scenes that really taps into that is when, so like we haven't talked a lot about Scarlett Johansson's character, but she's like one of the most layered characters there is because she's an actress. Well, Scarlett Johansson obviously is an actress, but she's playing an actress that is acting in a play, which is Asteroid City, in which she is an actress. And
it's funny to say
that,
the sentence.
Yeah, and that actress in Asteroid City, the play, is rehearsing for another play or film that she's going to be in as an actress.
It's like it's hilarious when you think about it. It's like he just made like multiple steps of like actress.
Right. Yeah,
it's hilarious.
It's hilarious, but it's also like, he loves acting, and I feel like he likes acting. He appreciates the actors, and really like there's that scene. So like she's rehearsing for whatever she's going to be in the Asteroid City like portion of the movie, and she like kind of pulls in Augie Steenbeck, who's Schwartzman's character in that
section. They're in different huts, different.
Yeah, they're in like neighboring little houses, in this little Asteroid City town, and she like kind of pulls him into helping her rehearse. So like, you know, he's doing line readings for her to work from. And then there's that one section where like she's trying to act off of him, but he's not delivering the line in a good way.
Mhm.
And she's like, use your, you know, so something we haven't talked about is this character that he's playing has lost his wife. Like we did touch on it because Margot Robbie is that wife
Yeah.
that's dead. Or she was supposed to play the part of that. And so like this character that he's playing has lost his wife. And so like, you know, ScarJo's character in the Asteroid City that's rehearsing is trying to like, you know, work off of him with these line readings he's giving. And she tells him at one point, use your grief.
Mhm.
And so like you have Jason Schwartzman is playing Jones Hall, who is an actor playing in this play as Augie Steenbeck. And she's telling him to use his grief. Well, it's not a real grief. It's a, you know, a faux grief that, and so he's like trying to figure out how do I tap into that. Well, like one of the reasons I feel like that scene with Margot Robbie really taps into everything is because you realize at some point in that sequence that the playwright has died like not that long ago.
Mhm.
And at a point earlier in the movie, you realize like that, you know, Jones Hall, I guess, had some sort of like intimate relationship with this playwright.
Mhm.
And so like that's a loss that character has that maybe he's perhaps like tapping into
Oh.
the
So
grief of
that's why
that.
that's interesting.
Yeah. And then, but then on top of that, like just thinking about the real life actor of Jason Schwartzman, like
Mhm.
he's being asked to like use your grief, but like in layers, like working through these layers. And so like, you
Can
know,
you
how does
imagine
he,
trying to? You
yeah,
imagine
how
trying
does
to
he work through all these layers of this character to like really pull something and deliver this line that sounds like a person in grieving? Um, and yeah, it's just like, and that to me is why like I feel like Wes is really like, this is an ode to acting. Like they do a work that no one else can do.
Mhm.
And yeah, just incredible. And I think at one point Wes in that press conference at Con was saying that so Schwartzman was just talking about how like he met Wes when he was 17 auditioning for Rushmore.
Mhm.
And you know, Rushmore was his first film. Like Wes like connected with him and like was like, you're gonna be Max for Rushmore. And
He was perfect.
yeah, and so he said, he was just like really appreciating that he talked about how Wes like talks to him in a way where like, and asked him questions in a way as a 17-year-old that he could tell that he actually like cared about the answers he was going to give. And he
Mhm.
said really like at that point in my life, no one over 20 that wasn't like a family member like talked to me in that way. And
Mhm.
so just seeing that relationship all the way back to Rushmore, which came out in, I want to say 98, up
Yeah.
until now, and seeing like the growth. And then Wes started riffing on like how he didn't even realize that Jason Schwartzman had this like hour-long ritual that he went through to kind of tasks that he would do to get into this character, which is a multi-layered character. Because he said they were
For
shooting
this
something,
movie.
yeah, for this movie. And so Wes was just talking about how like I didn't realize we were shooting the scene. Jason was there on set with us, but he wasn't supposed to be in the shot or in the scene. And I just had this idea for something we could do with him in it. And he was like, "Well, I really need an hour, like uh, before I can like." And Wes like didn't even realize like he had this whole thing that he had come up with that he had been doing every day before he came to set, of these like tasks that he would do to like really
did
tap into this character, this
did he
multi-layered
describe
character.
what? Did he
No,
like
he
describe
didn't.
what he was?
No, he
Ah,
didn't talk about it, what he was doing, but but the point that Wes was making was like, it's just incredible for him. Jason was like doting on him for like giving him a chance and helping him grow in his craft. But then Wes was like, doting on Jason for like the amount of growth he's come through in his craft as an actor, where like he like when they were working together on Rushmore, like Wes was working like very close with him, like constantly like, giving him notes, helping him make adjustments, like that sort of thing. And now like Jason has like this hour-long ritual that like Wes was like, that I appreciated. Like I was trying to like, I didn't understand at first why he couldn't just do the scene, but then I realized like, no, he's really like putting in hard work to make this character who he is. I can't like bypass his like process, which is really cool. I feel like
that's really cool. That's a like high level of respect both ways.
Yeah,
it's good to. That's really cool to see.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Was there anything else that really like stood out to you? I think I know I just asked you a question, but something just came to mind. One of the things that that I appreciated was that there were a lot of like little funny moments in this movie. Like we've been talking about a lot of the like more serious aspects, but it was a pretty funny movie.
Yeah.
Like, were there any jokes that stood out to you that you thought were really funny?
Yeah. So just not really a joke, but just like funny moments, like right at the beginning when Augie and his son and his 3 daughters pull up in their car that's breaking down, and they're trying to get gas, and he gets out of his car and he tries to light a cigarette, and he's out of his lighter's out of fuel, and so he kind of like flips it just to the side of the almost out of frame,
Mm-hmm.
and this little nozzle comes out and like bloop, 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 that fills it. That one got me. I thought it was hilarious. And I was like, right at the beginning, I was like, okay, all right, it's a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah,
it's kind of like, like I don't even know where that comes from, but it hits just right,
Right.
So that's one of the funny ones that stood out. I'm sure you've got some.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite lines in the whole movie, it's after the alien, and we haven't even talked about, man, there's so many so many characters. Like we haven't talked about Tom Hanks, who I think knocked it out of the park as the stepdad to Augie in the play. Like,
oh yeah,
why hasn't Tom Hanks been in a Wes movie yet? Because he was perfect. But yeah, but in Maya Hawke's character, we haven't talked about either. She plays
she was a standout.
Yeah, she plays the teacher of these kids. Yeah, but yeah, so along with her, one of my favorite lines was that alien has, I guess these kids are on a field trip with her as their teacher, and that the alien has shown up at this point. They're in quarantine, and she's still trying to do like her lessons, her like space lessons for the day. And she's like, she has the solar system like pull like on a little board, and she's saying, she's like, well, there's obviously a lot of things we don't know about the universe, but I'm pretty sure there's still 9 planets in the solar system. And then one of the kid pops up and says, except now there's an alien. Which I laughed out loud when the kid said that, because it was just so funny.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, I think that was like one of my favorite like funny moments, was that kid saying, except now there's an alien.
Yeah, and then like another one of those scenes, I don't know if it was that same scene, but there's another one of those like teaching scenes with her in the class, is when one of the little kids had written a song,
Yeah.
And I thought
the
the
Cowboys
song was
play.
hilarious.
The Cowboy troop plays along.
Yeah, and they weren't gonna she wasn't gonna let them sing it, but then Montana or somebody was like, "Well, we done rehearsed for it, so might as well do it or whatever." And they start singing, and it was a fun song.
Yeah, that was a fun scene. Rupert Friend plays the kind of head of the cowboy troop, which he was really great.
He was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of like character standouts, Jeffrey Wright, Rupert Friend, Maya Hawke, those three stood out significantly for me. I really liked Rupert Friend and Maya Hawke, who I don't think I've seen in other things, or at least I didn't know they were in other things. But they
Maya Hawke is in Stranger Things. That's what I think I know her from.
Oh, you're right. Yep.
Yeah. I can't remember her character's name, but yeah. I think that's the only thing I've seen her in is that. But yeah, she was really good. Yeah, there was the funny line from I think from Montana, Rupert Friend's Cowboy, where he's like talking about the alien, where he like walks up on the class and he's like, well, I don't think he meant no harm. And he's not American, but he's like, he's not American, but he's not a creature of God's earth, but he's a creature of somewhere. And he's like trying to teach the kids that you should like, treat this alien, with dignity.
Yeah.
Which is funny. Just that whole like concept is just funny just to think about.
I really liked his whole like mini monologue there. The whole thing I thought was great. That stuck with me.
Who we haven't talked about is Jake Ryan, who plays Woodrow, which is one of Schwartzman's kids in the movie. He's the whole reason that Augie Steenbeck is there in Asteroid City, because he's a genius junior stargazer kid who's invented this thing that projects images onto the moon. Jake Ryan was great. I didn't even realize I've seen him in other stuff, like 8th Grade. He was in that movie, which was a Bo Burnham movie that came out, I want to say 5 or less years ago. Really good, like kind of coming of age 8th grade teen movie. But yeah, he was in that, which I had forgotten that. But yeah, he was really, really good. Like he fit in.
Yeah,
he fit in so well with this one. And
he played that the character perfectly, I thought.
Oh yeah. And you even get kind of like with him and oh man, what's the girl's name? That's his kind of like
the love interest.
Yeah, the love interest.
Grace Edwards.
Yes.
Plays Dinah,
which
is Scarlett Johansson's daughter.
Right.
Movie.
Yeah. So they have a little like love interest going on that leads to him using his little invention to project a heart, or it's like Woodrow Hart's, like whatever her name is, the character's name is, on the moon, which is great. Yeah. Which I loved.
Yeah. They're trying to come up with something that represents Earth. They're trying to communicate with the aliens.
Right.
And they're like, well, can you come up with a symbol? And eventually that's the one they like.
Well, at that point,
sure
like, yeah, at that point, like all hell is broken loose because the alien came back and they reinstituted quarantine, and there's like a riot. And so I think at that point they're just like, screw it, like we're projecting our like
you're right,
our love onto the moon.
They're just like, I'm just gonna put this out there.
Yeah. But yeah, that Woodrow is a great character. He has a little like monologue where he's like talking about the alien and like, maybe there, could be like something about the meaning of life, or maybe there is one, and stuff like that. And he's just like so good. And I think even in that scene he says something like, "You took a picture of him, Dad," and Augie's like, "I'm a photographer." Yeah. Which is like, it reminded me of like how Wes answers like interview questions sometimes. It's like, why did you do this in that way? He's like, well, I liked it. I make a move. Basically, like, I don't know, I'm a filmmaker. I just did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Woodrow also has kind of a little relationship with the main scientist that Tilda Swinton plays. Dr. Hickenlooper.
What a name.
What a name, right? And so she's like, she has a very funny line where she's dealing with Woodrow and Sandy is the name of the girl, right? No. June. No, that's my Hawks character. Anyway, I
The
can't
love
remember.
interest character.
Dinah, that's her name.
Dinah. Yeah.
Dinah. Woodrow and Dinah. She's like talking to them, and she's like, "What?" I'm probably not going to get the line exactly right, but she says something to the effect of, "I wonder if I wish I had kids," something like that. And it's like this line that, like, when you really think about it, is hard to decipher what exactly it means. Yeah. But it's just like,
it's like she didn't say I wish I had kids.
No, she said, I wonder if I had wished I had kids or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is just, when she said it, like, it was funny to me. But yeah, you have a lot of stuff like that in this movie where characters are like saying these lines that are like these weirdly constructed sentences that Wes has written that I thought was really funny, where they're like kind of repeating the same thing in two different ways in the same sentence. I don't know. Did you notice that?
Yeah. It's just, it makes sense. Like it being in a Wes movie, it's a little bit quirky and it's funny. Like,
right.
I hear these lines. I'm like, they're just like, there's humor in here, And I think Wes knows that. I think he's very dialed into, I think it makes him internally chuckle a little bit. I think he's
for sure.
got a good mind for what the audience will hear when they, how they'll experience it. He's good at what he does.
What did you think about the alien?
Honestly, okay, so the alien ship comes over where they're looking up at the stars, and the hatch opens and this foot steps out. When that foot stepped out, I was really worried. I was like, is this CG? Are they CGing this? Is this going to look terrible? But when he fully came down, I was like, they got it right. It's just, he's a funny looking alien. He looks like an alien, but he doesn't look, it's not cringe. Doesn't look bad. It looks perfect for the movie. And I thought the alien was perfect. And even like how he acted, he's just got these wide eyes. He's just kind of like, and then when he
looks really nervous.
He's like nervous. And he like picks up the meteor and he's like, he sees the camera and he goes,
yeah, like he poses. he poses for the camera.
That part got me. That's hilarious.
Oh man. And I don't know. I don't think I heard anything about if that was like stop motion or what. It felt kind of stop motion-y.
I saw that they had a puppeteer for it.
Okay.
So I couldn't tell.
Kind of like the woodpecker.
Yeah. Because the woodpecker,
Roadrunner,
I the woodpecker was the Roadrunner. I thought at first the Roadrunner was stop motion. I was like, it has to be stop motion, right? But it looked a little too fluid.
Yeah.
So
it was puppeted. So like I saw like a B-roll behind the scenes clip of these guys, like they have like green screen pants and like sleeves on.
They got green pants.
Yeah, and they're like walking the little Roadrunner around like with puppet sticks.
I thought that was great. I loved it. Because I saw the same thing. I was like, "Oh, that's how they did it. That's great. That's great. It's brilliant."
Yeah, I guess the alien was probably something similar, but yeah, the alien was.
They may have
fantastic.
CG'd his eyes. I think they may have CG'd his eyes.
Maybe, yeah.
But it's since they had a puppeteer, I assume they had it, puppet for the main the main shooting, and then just went back in and added some details. I think.
Yeah, probably so. And those, I know in a few of those scenes they had some green screen action going on, just because like of the nature of those shots. But obviously we talked about how most of it's pretty tangible, so probably the alien was mostly like a tangible physical like puppet. Which the alien just made me laugh, and then he like comes back and like puts it back. That's there was another line that Augie says to I think is her name, Mercedes Ford, in the Scarlett Johansson. I think her in the Mercedes Ford, or no, Midge. Mercedes Ford is
Midge
the name of
Campbell,
her like outside of the play character, but her inside of the play character is Midge. But yeah, Augie says to Midge, like, I don't like the way that guy looked at us. And she's like, who? He said, and he was like, the alien. She's like, how do you look at us? Like, we're doomed. Like, I just like how he said that line, like, I don't like how that guy looked at us. Like, he referred to the alien as that guy, which to me, to me is kind of funny. I don't know.
Something I would say about some guy out there.
Right. Yeah, not an alien. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. I appreciated I feel like one of the new things that he kind of brought in that I feel like he's maybe used once or twice before, but it's used a lot here is like the split screen, where you have like, you know, people on the phone and you're seeing, you know, one person on the left, one person on the right in two different locations. Like I feel like he used that to good effect. Like I'm thinking of the first phone call that Augie makes to his father-in-law, who's Tom Hanks, and like they're talking to each other. And at one point, like they're in two different locations on the phone, but it's a split screen, and like they turn, like the way he has the camera, like has them like facing each other.
Yeah, one's on the right facing left, one's on the left facing right.
Right.
And then the scene's cut down the middle.
Right. Yeah, but you know, it's framed where it looks like they're looking at each other like really close. And like those I don't know, there's like an intimacy to that I think works really well, because they're talking about like his wife passing and has he told his kids yet, sort of thing. And like there's some, I feel like this is a very fast-paced movie. Like there's a lot going on all the time, but I feel like there are a few moments like that where there are some, like, there's space. Like I remember distinctly, like there's some line readings in there where there's like just some empty space between the lines where nothing's being said. You're just kind of like looking at their faces. And so I appreciated those touches, and the split screen was fun. Yeah. And it seems like, was there a whip pan within a split screen? Like, isn't there a point where he's on the phone and then the police car comes through town and it whip pans like on his side of the split screen?
I think it does. I think it does, because I remember the camera turning and it's kind of like turning into the split screen.
Yeah.
I think I remember this because I have the same memory.
Yeah.
Of that.
Which is just, I don't know. It's like, feels like he's showing off at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, but I liked it, you know.
Yeah.
It was cool to see.
Yeah, was there any other points you felt like stood out to you in the movie before we get to final thoughts?
Containers, you know, like the Tupperware container.
Oh, yeah.
But I just thought that was funny.
Yes.
You know, like he's carrying around this Tupperware container and it has his wife's ashes in it.
Yeah.
And at one point, one of the kids, like, it hasn't been like revealed yet. One of the kids is like, "Is she in there?" And he's like, yes. Or like he indicates yes. And so, you know.
Yeah, I think it's Woodrow's like, "Is mom in there?" And he's like, "Yes." When he finally tells them that she's died. And then we haven't mentioned, there's like 3 little girls, like triplets that are his daughters. Like a decent amount younger than the Woodrow character. But they're like strange and like really cute and funny.
Very cute. And odd, but
there's
cute,
almost,
you know,
there's almost like this Macbeth like 3 witches thing, because they're like pretending they're variations on witches. So there's almost like this Macbeth 3 witches oracles thing going on with the triplets. But in a very Wes Anderson way.
Yeah, and exactly, very Wes Anderson. But they're pretending to be witches, with their mother's Tupperware container with her ashes in it.
Yeah.
They're like buried but not covered in the ground.
Right.
And they're like trying to bring her back to life or something.
Yeah.
It's just, it's just funny. It's kind of dark, but it doesn't feel dark. It just feels funny.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like cute but really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the three girls they got for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember too, like towards like the end, like Tom Hanks's character, which is their granddad, is like trying to like take the Tupperware container but at some point he just like gives in and it's like, I guess like we're burying her right here because that's what her daughters want to do, as strange as it is.
Yeah. In a shallow grave too.
Yeah.
It's like,
but she's in a Tupperware
somebody's
container.
Somebody's going to find that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which the Tupperware is a joke in and of itself because it's like, it's definitely like a joke about those times. Like, oh yeah, everything's sealed tight, safe in a Tupperware container. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I wanted, just to get into some final thoughts. One of the things that we kind of talked about was the way that Wes like kind of sets up his movies where everything is so like dialed in as far as like the lines and the rhythm and everything. But how like the actors kind of talk about how there's like a freedom in those constraints. And really like you see that like along with the Jones Hall character that Schwartzman plays, like he's within this structure of a play and he's like, he's acting within it, and there's constraints when you're working within that structure. But it's allowing him as that Jones Hall character that's an actor to explore his own like emotions and his own grief and his own issues within the like through that character of Augie. And it just makes me think about how like I don't know, and it's one of those things that kept coming up in the interviews was how like, yeah, like Wes has a particular way of doing things, but because there are these like constraints that you're working within, it's like you can do so much more. I think Schwartzman in an interview gave the example of like, if I tell you to just like name 10 of the best songs ever, he's like, there's so many songs. He's like, you're just going to be like lost. But like, if I say like, name 10 songs about shoes, then like now you have like something to work off of and you can like dig into it and really like find these songs about shoes or whatever. And he was giving the parallel of like working with all of this detail and all these constraints that like Wes is working with a specific thing in mind. And there's a specific, like the Asteroid City has this feel to it that's very specific and like set in its own little world. But within that, like those constraints, like now you have more freedom to even like explore and see more possibilities. And I don't know, it just got me thinking about like how that rings true in life too. How like, if you don't have any constraints of like discipline or, morality or whatever on your life, like you really like, you're just kind of like flailing about. Like there's no like purpose or direction to a life that doesn't have like some sort of discipline or constraint on it. But once you add that discipline and constraint, then like there's so much more freedom to let yourself be who you are. Let yourself like grow. There's growth that comes from it. That's one of the things that I was really thinking about leading up to recording this is just because it kept coming up so much in those interviews, and it got me thinking of how like you see that in the film too, because it is actors, like actors playing actors kind of thing. And them working within that structure, and through that, like dealing with real issues in their lives, things that have happened, like, you know, the whole use your grief thing. Um, you know, it's, you know, they're harnessing these things that they don't like fully understand about the world to find like those very things that they don't fully understand, like Augie. Like, I don't understand the play. I don't understand like this character fully, but like he's still able to harness that thing he doesn't understand to like to find peace and to actually like understand the grief he's going through.
Yeah.
From losing the playwright in that case as Jones Hall. And I don't know, like, and you see that like, you know, that use your grief line rings true as far as that goes. And then like at one point, the Tilda Swinton scientist character tells Woodrow, like, trust your curiosity. It's he's dealing with like, he's not sure what to do with this curiosity he has about both like this girl that he's interested in, but also like what he wants to do with his life in the future. You know, he's a teenager thinking about those sorts of things. And she tells him like, that very thing that you don't understand, like use that, trust your curiosity. And so I don't know, did you have any thoughts as far as those?
Definitely. Well, first, so I guess I'll do two things. I first just want to go back and touch on what you were talking about the constraints. You know, and I think you're right in the movie and in life that constraints are a good thing. I think they give you focus. Whereas if you have a blanks, if it's like a free for all, you can start wherever you want, do whatever. It's like you lack the focus to create something substantial, you know. But the constraints say they guide you in a very specific direction, and you know, since you're going this way, might as well dig deep and delve in,
right?
And so you get after it. You know what the rules are, and you know what the limitations are. You know what's safe and what's not, and you can fill that entire space. You know, basically, it just gives you focus. And so I think you're absolutely right that that's one of the takeaways for the movie.
Yeah.
But for me, the thing that really stuck with me was a surprising scene that kind of I don't think this is Wes's main takeaway. I don't even know if he wanted me to take this away, but it's what I thought about. And it has to do with consumerism and how we construct our experiences. You know, if we even give any thought to that, right? And the scene that made me think about it, surprisingly enough, was the one with the vending machine plot of land.
Yeah, which was funny in and of itself.
It was funny, right? And I thought when there's a ton of vending machines, and one of them is a vending machine, and it's got all of these options to buy plots of land on it. And I thought that was all we were going to get. I was like, just show that they have a vending machine and nothing more. But Wes goes on, and it's like he lets the scene play out with one of the characters asking Steve Carell's character, the hotel host, or the host, like, well, wait, walk me through this. What is this? And it turns out these plots of land are just these tiny little, like maybe like 1 foot by 1 foot plots, that you can buy from a vending machine, and you get an actual deed to the land. Yeah. But what are you going to do with it? Right. You're basically buying it just to say I have it. And at first, I'll be honest, when I first watched the movie, I walked away thinking, I don't know, I feel like there were some unnecessary scenes in there. And this was one of them. And I was like, just because it dragged out, I'm like, what's the point of this scene? It's either unnecessary or Wes had a purpose for it. And so I started thinking, well, what could it be, And I started thinking about, what would be the purpose of buying a plot of land that's 1 foot by 1 foot? You're just buying it just to buy it, just so you can have it. And I'm like, well, that's I make purchases like that. Tons of people live like that. And what are you buying? You're buying like a microcosm of an experience. Like it's nothing substantial. You just simply have this tiny little blip on the radar of something of all that could be. Like what are you doing? And so I started. I doubt Wes wanted me to think about all this, but it's what I've been thinking about is, I want to be meaningful in not just purchasing experiences, but selecting, substantial experiences, whether it's a purchase or not, but also, you know, making wise financial decisions that comes along with that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Wes didn't want me to think all that. Maybe he did. If he did, he's a genius.
Yeah.
I already think he's a genius, but if he is, then he's on another level.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's what I've been thinking about.
It even sort of fits into the whole like constraints thing, like putting constraints on how you like spend your time and money. Like there's more freedom in your life when you do that, because if you have a budget that you stick to and you're not wasting money on whatever, then you have a freedom to, when something interesting comes along, to like actually do it, because you haven't been spending on things that don't matter.
Exactly.
Or same thing with time. If you use your time wisely, then when something comes up that is interesting to you, you're able to like spend your time doing it because you've put constraints on your time. So like it even ties into my thoughts, I think, too.
Exactly, because the thing is, for each person, we don't have to live that way. Like I can choose to waste my time and waste my money, or I can choose to constrain myself. It's only a decision that I can make.
Yeah.
And if I do, it'll I think anybody would agree that me putting those constraints on my time and money will have huge payoffs down the road. And so, so I walked away with that. A scene I thought was unnecessary was the one that I'm drawing the most out of, even if Wes didn't mean me to or not. So
great.
So that's it.
Love it. Yeah, I love that. And I like I said, like this, I need to watch this like a second and third time because there's just so much to dig into here. But yeah, I guess we're at the point where we do our own personal, subjective, arbitrary ratings. Yeah, what did you rate Asteroid City first off?
Well, I don't think this is my final rating.
Okay,
I'll say
that's
that
fair.
Because this movie is kind of like I'm kind of doing with it what I did with Banshees of Inisherin that I mentioned earlier, where when I walked out of the theater, I thought it was just okay. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But as I've been thinking about it, I've been finding more and more stuff to like, and some of the stuff that I thought I hated, I've been thinking, well, as I've been dwelling on it, I'm like, well, actually, I like that scene. I like it now, And so, but I haven't fully done all that. So right now, I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5, which is low. Right? But higher than
that's solid.
It was, and I guess I should explain my ratings because I rate.
Sure.
It's not just a simple number for me. So if I'm basically, for it to get a 5 out of 5, it has to be a movie that I can put on almost any time. It's an all-time favorite. You put it on, I'm having a good time, right?
Yeah.
And then I kind of rate it in terms of rewatchability.
Sure.
And if I'm giving it a 3, that's something that I'm only going to watch one time, but still worth watching just once. So 3.5 is a little bit higher than that. Like I want to rewatch it again, but I don't know if it's more than that. It would take another viewing for me to know.
Right.
So for now, it's not a 3, which is just watching once. It's a little bit more than that, and I'm not sure if it's going to be higher or stay there. I'll see. So that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, this one I really, really liked a whole lot. I walked out and I was just smiling because of just the, I don't know, the amount for, first off, like just right when you watch a Wes Anderson movie, just like the craft of it all, it's just hard to like walk away and be like, oh, that was terrible. Just because like, you're going to watch something that's like visually like pleasing. But on top of that, with this one, for me, I just felt like there was so many like literal like layers built into the movie, but also just like layers of things to dig into and things going on. And that's the sort of movie that that I really really enjoy. I will say I don't think I'm emotionally connected with it to the same degree that I have others of Wes.
Yeah.
I did feel I did have emotionally connecting moments with like those scenes that we've talked about where Augie goes backstage and Adrian Brody tells him, you're playing him right, keep playing him, which is just like, it rings true to life, like when you don't understand what's going on with your life, to like keep moving forward, keep telling the story in so many words. But yeah, so there was a few that I'm emotionally connected with sequences, but I don't feel like to the same degree I have others of his. And so when I rate movies, like I'm rating, it's a very subjective experience to me. Like I'm gonna rate a movie based off of like how it makes me feel, how much like I enjoy it, and then like obviously like if a movie's getting bad ratings, it's not like that I necessarily hated all the movie. It's usually because like there's a bunch of parts that like I thought were dumb or like didn't, and, that sort of thing. But yeah, I walked out of this one, and this is sort of, so I almost have kind of baked into my rating that I have a very strong feeling that I'm going to watch it again and like it even more. And so I went ahead and gave it 4.5 out of
So you
5.
bumped it up a little bit because you've got a feeling it's
Right.
got staying power.
Like when I've walked out, I was like solid 4, like loved it, solid 4. But the more I've been thinking about it, I'm like, I feel like I need to bake in the fact that there's almost no way I can watch this again and not like it even more. And one of those kind of movies for me. And so, but yeah, as far as like where it goes, in my ranking. So, I mean, I've seen every Wes movie now, and I have Asteroid City sitting at number 6 right now. So really like about midway of his movies.
So about halfway. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of sitting. So I have my top tier has like Tenenbaums, Grand Budapest, Mr. Fox, and Rushmore. That's like my top tier. And then I have 3 in Life Aquatic, now this one, Asteroid City, and Isle of Dogs, that are kind of in that middle tier together. And then the last 4 are kind of in the bottom tier for me. Yeah, do you have any idea where you would place it for you?
Let me pull up. Is it on Letterboxd? Like if I were to type in, yeah, I'm sure if I type in Wes.
Yeah,
Anderson.
I mean, like you can look. This is my Letterboxd, like my personal list. I don't know if you can actually see it on the camera, but yeah, I mean, he has you got it pulled up.
Got it here.
Sweet.
So for me, I'm going to go with, and these go back and forth, but right now I've got Fantastic Mr. Fox as number 1, followed by Grand Budapest. Those 2 swap for me often. And then below that is Life Aquatic. That's my 3rd favorite. I love that movie.
Love it.
And then I've got the Darjeeling Limited after that. And then it'd be a toss up between this one, Tenenbaums, or Moonrise Kingdom. It's kind of, I have those 3 after that.
Sure.
And so that's kind of where it is. I think I like this one more than, I don't know if I can say that. I need to rewatch Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah.
The good excuse to go rewatch.
Exactly.
I think it'd be Tenenbaums next, and then either Moonrise Kingdom or this one is where I put it. I think I like Tenenbaums more than Moonrise or Asteroid City.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. And that I feel like I had commented on someone on the Instagram account for the podcast earlier that like one of the cool things about Wes is like you would be hard pressed to like find any two rankings of his 11 films that are the same. Like everyone kind of has their different favorites and least favorites, which is so, that just, to me, that says like, oh, this is a good filmmaker.
Yeah, I love that about him. You're absolutely right. Cause there are people who are like strong, strong supporters of like Tenenbaums. That's their number one movie, and there's others where Grand Budapest is going to be number one on a lot of people's lists,
right?
And sometimes it is for me, and it probably is his best movie that he's ever made. Fantastic Mr. Fox, though, I just really enjoy that movie a lot. Every time I watch it,
same.
That's why it's number one a lot too. So
yeah. Well, sweet. I've really enjoyed this series. I think next week. So I'll go ahead and say next week I'm going to kind of do a solo episode, an epilogue to the series, if you will. So it'll be a little shorter, just kind of sharing some final thoughts that I've had going through this series on Wes and his films and his filmography. And so I'm looking forward to getting into that and recording that here soon. But that's going to be what's on the docket for next week for episode 14. So everyone can look forward to that. But I will go ahead and tease that I do have a next series planned that I will talk about more next week. And the tease is that it is a movie that, as of the time of this recording, has not come out yet. But it is a director that has, let's just say, an explosive movie coming out real soon. Okay. By the time this podcast comes out, it will have already exploded into theaters. And so
those who are in the know already know who it is then. Right,
exactly.
I'm pretty sure it's got to be who I'm thinking is, but I won't say it.
Yeah. So that's coming up in the next couple weeks. And so that's it for the Asteroid City portion. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with our movie news and movie draft section. So we will see you soon. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on the Establishing Shot today. We hope you're enjoying the episode so far, and we hope you'll stick around for the segments we have coming up after this quick break. But during this break, I wanted to tell you how you can get more involved with the Establishing Shot podcast. There are several ways you can do this. The main way you can do it is by going to establishingshotpod.com, our website where you can find all sorts of information like episodes with the show notes on there, information about our guests for each episode. You can find reviews there. And there's a page where you can actually leave a review on the website if you want to. You can see all the platforms where the podcast is available, like Apple, Spotify, all the major podcast platforms, and even a link to our YouTube page where you can see a video version of the podcast. So please go to the website. And the place I want to highlight there is our donate page, which has information about our Establishing Shot family. This is a way that you can subscribe to the podcast to support all the efforts and the stuff that goes into making this podcast good and making it better than it even is now. We have different tiers that you can subscribe to, starting at $5. And what this will do is you'll be able to support the podcast, help me make it better. And also at the same time, you'll get early and ad-free episodes. You'll get access to our Discord server where you can join in and just kind of talking about movies with a community that loves film. And so we would love to have you in there. And then the higher up in the tiers you go, the more you get. Even things like chats and video chats that we'll do every once in a while, where we get to talk about in more detail stuff that we're talking about on the podcast. So I hope you'll subscribe to that. Choose a tier that fits your budget, and I would love for you to support the podcast in that way. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is where you can find us on social media. You can find me personally on Twitter at @TheEliPrice, and you can also follow me on Letterboxd. Letterboxd is kind of like a social media for movie reviews, so you can read my reviews there, and you can find me there at just Eli Price. No spaces or anything. So I'm on Twitter and Letterboxd. You can find the podcast on all the social platforms as well, such as Twitter at eShotPod, and then on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok at Establishing Shot Pod. So make sure to follow us so you don't miss anything. If you have any questions or comments about the episode or about the podcast, you can always email us at establishingshotpod@gmail.com. And the very last thing I want to do before you get back into the episode today is just ask you to please go to Spotify and Apple and leave some ratings and reviews. That really helps the visibility of the podcast and gets it in more people's podcast feeds. And so we hope you will do that for us, and we would greatly appreciate it. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode, and I will see you next time on the Establishing Shot podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Establishing Shot. I'm Eli here with Ian, and we really enjoyed talking about Asteroid City. Wrapping up the final film of Wes's filmography, and but yeah, it's time now to move on and do some movie news. But we're gonna stick on sort of a theme with Wes with the movie news this week. I thought it'd be interesting to just kind of like, I don't know, just talk about like the Wes kind of era of directors. So like, I think Wes is in his early to mid 50s now. But like those kind of directors that are like, Gen X, kind of 45 to 60-ish, feels like they kind of feel like their own little like era of directors. But yeah, I had written down a few. Were there any that came to mind for you apart from the ones I had written down? I wrote down some major ones, but
yeah, you hit the big ones. So those are the ones that I would think of.
Yeah.
And then anybody that's not outside of that, I just probably wouldn't think of.
Right.
And so these ones here, I'm seeing these, and I'm like, oh yeah, these are the ones. Like especially, do you want me to like?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I'm looking at David Fincher.
Yeah.
Man, he's one of my favorite directors. He did what? He did Seven.
Mm-hmm.
What else has he done? He's done like a bunch that I like.
Yeah. Yeah, Seven I think is my favorite personally.
Yeah, it's my favorite. But what else has he done? Like I know, I'm trying to think what he. I say I love the director. I can't think of anything he did.
Yeah, David Fincher. Fight Club.
Of course, yeah, Fight Club.
Oh man, yeah. Now that you're making me think, it's hard to come up with it off the top of my head. But yeah,
he did Zodiac.
Yeah, Zodiac.
Zodiac, Fight Club, The Social Network.
Mm-hmm.
Benjamin Button, Gone Girl.
Some great ones for sure.
Great movies. And then, of course, I saw you wrote down Tarantino.
Yeah.
And you have to mention his name.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just in general, but especially this era of filmmakers. He's similar to West in that his style is very distinctive.
Mm-hmm.
And just like most of his movies I love. And especially, Pulp Fiction. You never watch something like that the way he did it. So,
when I think of, oh, sorry, I kicked my mic. When I think of this era, it's like, it feels like a bunch of directors that like really loved movies
Mm-hmm.
and really like, so like when you think about it, they had, they're when they were coming onto the scene. So like a lot of these movies are like coming out in the 90s from these directors. I think they accept. So like, let me just read off some of these names. So you have like Paul Thomas Anderson, Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, Spike Lee, David Fincher, Steven Soderbergh, Sofia Coppola, Richard Linklater, Spike Jonze, Guillermo del Toro, Darren Aronofsky. Those are all the names I kind of wrote down that are kind of in this like little era of filmmakers. And when you think about a lot of those guys and you hear them talk, especially like if you listen to interviews of like when they have a new movie coming out, they're like naming all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they are all like cinephiles before they were filmmakers.
Yeah.
I
love, like you mentioned Del Toro. I love watching him in interviews talking about his movies because he's almost giddy.
Yeah.
He's almost like giddy with excitement about what he's doing. I think he's just like that. But I love watching him enjoying everything he's doing, and and the movies he makes are just stand alone.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and yeah, like I was saying, I feel like, I mean, maybe other than like Spike Lee feels like he kind of started coming on strong in he's a little bit, I guess, he's a little bit out of this range, but feels kind of this era.
Mm-hmm.
But he started kind of in the 80s more than these other guys. Most of them started coming out with movies in the 90s. But like, just thinking about at that point, I mean, you have, how many nearly a century worth of film history to kind of like draw from.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you're coming in with like so much just influences in your mind as filmmakers. That makes this era of directors really like, I don't know, unique, but also like really good filmmakers because they do seem to all really enjoy film history and having a vast knowledge of film. Like Wes for sure has that. And you mentioned Tarantino. Whenever you watch Tarantino interviews, he's like all the time plugging other movies you need to go watch. Like, oh yeah, if you liked my movie that just came out, you need to go watch these like 5 movies.
I feel like Tarantino, out of all of them, film knowledge, just because I think he worked in a film shot, like a film, like he used to work in some film job, like
Mm-hmm.
where I don't know. He's been in the industry for a long
Right.
time, and you're right. Every time he's talking, he's like, you know, you know, if you like this, you should watch this. Or when I was making this, I was really had this in mind, and I used to do, used to watch these movies and these spaghetti westerns and stuff, and he's always talking like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, him and Wes are very much feel very similar in that way.
Mm-hmm.
They probably have like different movies that they're referencing is the difference, but they're all the time like bringing up movies you've never heard of, or like just they just have a really huge knowledge of film history. And I don't know, some of these other directors might be similar, but those two like stand out for me as far as like
for sure
what I've heard from interviews. But yeah, I don't know. It feels I think because of that these directors are like have so much film history to work back on and use as influences, that a lot of them do like make movies that feel like they're reaching back in time. Tarantino definitely is reaching back in his movies.
Oh yeah.
In all kinds of ways. And Wes definitely does. But then you have guys like Spike Lee, who seems to be like very much interested in what's happening now.
Yeah.
Steven Soderbergh is like that sort of.
And you have people who are just like out there, like Spike. I don't know how to say his last name. Spike Jones, Spike Jonze.
Spike
Mike
Jones.
Jones. Every time I
Yeah.
watch one of his movies, it's like it's always something. It's different. It's the best way to.
Oh yeah, it's way out there for sure.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
good. And it's always interesting.
hmm But even like you think of like Richard Linklater, like he is a very reflective
Mm-hmm.
filmmaker. Like he even had the animated movie that came out a year or two ago. That's basically like him just reminiscing on his childhood.
What was it
I
called?
think it's called Apollo 10 and a half.
I have to look that up.
I think it's on Netflix. It's really good.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. But and then he made Boyhood, which was filmed over a whole decade.
Crazy.
Yeah. So and that feels like with a few exceptions, it feels like this era of filmmakers is very like reflective in that way.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like in like quote unquote like the good old days sort of thing,
Like
but like just like
trying to pay homage to it.
yeah, like pay homage to the past, but also like just drawing from the past to. It's not that they're not interested in the present. It's more like they're reaching back into the past to figure out what to do with it, I guess, now, sort of thing. But yeah, it's really is an incredible era of directors. I feel like, like these are all guys that like I love. These are all directors I love.
Yeah, they're all great, and what I love that you mentioned earlier is, I don't know some of these directors on the list, as well as you do, but I know for a lot of them, they love what they do. Christopher Nolan, Tarantino, David Fincher, Guillermo del Toro, Darren Aronofsky, they love filmmaking, and I love that they love that, and because they're making great movies. So, yeah.
And these guys are all like, like I said, 45 to 60-ish, some a little bit older than 60 now. But man, I really hope like they just, like we were talking about earlier, like I hope they just keep pumping out movies. Like, Scorsese is, I want to say he's in his 80s now. Spielberg must be too. And they're still like pumping out movies, and I hope this era of directors is the same way. Like, just keep chugging out.
Keep doing what you do.
Yeah. But yeah, that's. I guess that's it for movie news. Unless you had anything else to say.
No, for that topic, I think that wraps it up.
I think we nailed it. Yeah,
we killed it.
What else is there to talk about now?
Nothing.
Yeah, that's our movie news segment. But I am excited to get into our movie draft.
I'm ready.
Yeah. I just texted Ian this earlier today what our draft was going to be, so I hope I gave him enough time to come up with a good list. Great. Don't show it to me because I might steal your picks. We're going to be drafting in line with the Asteroid City, which takes place in a desert. We're going to be drafting desert movies, or movies with deserts in them at some point, But yeah, so I'm excited. I feel like I've got a really good list. I think we'll probably, we didn't really discuss this off mic, but do you have enough to draft 7 each on your list?
As long as you don't take half of mine, I should be good.
We'll wing it. We'll just see where we end up.
And I've got some in my mind I can throw in if like you take
great.
These, so.
All right, let's do it. Yeah, we'll shoot for drafting 7 each. 7 is a good number.
Cool.
So let's do that. But yeah, you're a first time guest, so you get the first pick.
Sweet. Very
yeah.
To have that first pick. I'm gonna go with Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Good pick.
Which is one of my all-time favorite movies. Put that on any time, and you're gonna be having a good time. So, love that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, great pick, and that's right in line with Dial of Destiny came out this month. I've actually been rewatching these, and loving
Oh,
it.
they're great.
Yeah, I had never seen King of the Crystal Skull. I know a lot of people hate it, dislike it. I thought it was a fun movie. I didn't really understand. I understand why you might think it's not that great, maybe, but the the amount of like hate people have of that movie is like I just don't
Yeah,
understand
it's a
it. I
bit
thought it
much.
was still in yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Raiders great pick. Um I I have a lot of movies on my list that I love, but probably none that everyone will love along with me. And that is like not just like a crowd pleasing pick, but it is one of my like 5-star 10 out of 10 movies. And you might not think of it right away when you think of desert movies, but it's full of deserts. They're just not Earth deserts. They're
I think this is on the list.
deserts on the planet Tatooine and places like that. So I'm gonna pick Star
Oh,
Wars.
that was not on my
Uh,
list, but that one's great.
yeah, Star Wars. I'm not gonna say the fake name of A New Hope because that's not the name of the movie. The name of the movie is Star Wars.
That's a great
Uh,
pick. I don't know why I didn't think of that. It's on just on
yeah. It's not Earth deserts, but
man.
they are definitely it's chock full of deserts for sure.
Good pick. That one's great. All right.
All right, where are you going
So
next?
next, I'm going to go with Mad Max Fury Road. Just
Oh, that's a gut punch.
yeah, I'm sure it was on your list.
Yes. Yeah, that's one of I always say if I had to say what if you were to ask me and I had to answer what's the best action movie of all time, I would say Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, it's it's an incredible movie of action and speed
And
and
deserts.
desert. It's entirely in the desert, and it's just like you. It's a 5 out of 5 for me. I love that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I actually have a few like just like 5-star movies on this list. That's actually one of them.
Yeah.
Mad Max is one of those for me. But actually I think I have one more on my list. And I'm gonna go ahead and take it, and that is No Country for Old Men.
That was my next one.
Man, yeah, you gotta love like sniping picks off of people.
It's fun.
Right before they're gonna take it. Most of the time, it ends up happening to me. Like I would have been really having a hard time picking between this one and Mad Max. So I guess it's better that you went ahead and took one of them, so I didn't have to like
If you
struggle
had taken Mad
with
Max,
my
I was
pick.
going to pick No Country for Old Men. So
But yeah, No Country, like one of probably the best Coen Brothers movie, and just it's one of those movies that like I watched early on in my like, I guess journey into loving movies, and have just like grown to love it even more. It's such a good movie.
it really is. And
But
I'm
yeah.
actually so Cormac McCarthy is one of my favorite authors, and he wrote No
Okay.
Country for Old Men.
Right.
Have you read the book as well?
No, I haven't. But it's good.
It's one
Incredible.
of the rare exceptions where I think the book is just as good as the movie, or the movie's just as good as the book. They're both
Okay,
just perfect. They're both like perfection,
Yeah.
Such a good movie.
Yeah, I'll have to check that book out sometime.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, this is your third pick.
Third pick. Okay, so it's starting to get tricky now. So that one's been taken. I'm gonna go with animated movie, which I think is kind of forgotten these days. Prince of Egypt.
That was on my list.
It was on your list?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I like it. It's a desert movie. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, and I
Man, the songs on that are so
the
good.
songs are peak. They're great.
Yeah.
And so like I'd forgotten about it until recently. I saw it. Someone had posted about it online, and I was like, that was a great movie. You know,
Yeah.
So,
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
yeah, me
But
too. I
yeah.
need to rewatch it because it was a good movie.
So I do have one more 5-star movie that I watched probably a couple years ago. That this is one of those. So like we were talking earlier, how like when you're doing these drafts, you're like, man, do I make picks that are going to make the people happy or picks that'll make me happy? And I always like to do a little mix of both. So this is one of those that probably most people are not familiar with, maybe. But it is, I think, I want to say it's a 1974 movie by Wim Wenders called Paris, Texas.
Oh yeah.
It to me, it's just an incredible movie. I don't even know what to say about it, but the desert is definitely a prominent feature in the movie, and man, it's just an incredible like character study into this guy that's the lead actor. Great movie. If you haven't watched that one, I would highly recommend it.
I haven't
really
watched
good
it,
movie.
but I just wrote it down on my list of things to watch. So,
oh yeah,
but I'm aware
it's
of it.
Incredible.
Like I've heard of it. You know, people talk of it like of it being a
good right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Cool.
So for my next one, number 4.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with. Ooh, this is tough. I'm just going to go with the one that I like the most, which is going to be. I'm going to go with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking, I wonder if I should take that next.
It was on your list too?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's, I actually caught up with this very recently. I'm trying to remember why I did, but, oh, I remember. I listen to a podcast called Film Spotting, and they do like a March Madness bracket. They've been doing decades, and so it was the '60s, best of the '60s bracket back in March this year, and so I was catching up with '60s movies that I hadn't seen,
and that was one.
And yeah, that was one of them. I was like, oh, I need to watch this. So yeah, it really great. The score on that movie is so like iconic.
It's just emblematic of like my idea of the West, you know?
Yeah.
In that time, like even if it's not that way, that's like my idea of it. And the score is perfect. The scenery is perfect. The cast, Eastwood in his prime, is great.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I've got some different directions I can go. There's at least one more movie that like I really love, but probably most people haven't seen, that I could take. But I'm going to kind of go, man. So, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and take like the pick that I think is like more crowd pleasing, that I do think is a great movie and do like a lot. That way I can kind of do what I want maybe with the rest of my picks. And I'm going to go ahead and take There Will Be Blood. Paul Thomas Anderson's
write that one down.
Film. Daniel Day-Lewis, just incredible. Like, man,
and that's got
every time I think about that movie, I want a milkshake though.
It's obligatory, I think, if you watch that movie. That movie has isn't Paul Dano in that movie? Dano?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love
he plays like I think the character's name is Eli. His character's name.
Oh yeah, it is.
He's like a priest, and his name is Eli.
I love it. I love Paul Dano anytime he's in anything. He's
oh yeah, he was great in The Fabelmans for sure.
Yeah, he was really good. And he's playing a different role too. Usually he's playing a little character that's kind of off, you know. That was kind of down the line.
Yep.
Okay. So next,
all right, we've got 3 more picks.
Okay. Cool.
This is your fifth.
This is my fifth. I'm going to go with the movie Holes.
Okay. Good pick. I didn't write it on my list because I already had so many that I would choose over it. That I was like, I like Holes a lot, but I just didn't even write it down. But I do like Holes.
I like it. It's not, out of all the movies I have on the list, it's not the best, like cinematically, technically made. It's not going to beat the others, but it's one that I just enjoy. I can put it on.
Yeah. It's a nostalgia pick.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
that's why I'm picking it. Yep.
Yeah. Good pick. So I think, I'm going to go next. I'm going to go with a film, by director, Kelly Reichardt. It's kind of, I don't know, I guess you might call it like a neo-Western, if that's a genre.
I'm curious.
Kind of, it's a film called Meek's Cutoff. So it's an incredible movie. It's, Kelly Reichardt she really is a great director, because she does so many different sorts of genres. This is a movie set in like the mid 1800s, following like basically some settlers like on the Oregon Trail, basically. But I would call it like it actually stars Michelle Williams. She's one of the main characters. Paul Dano's in it too. Actually,
what's the name of this movie again? I need to write this down.
Meek's Cutoff. MEEK''S. Meek's Cutoff. But yeah, it's so I would call it a neo-Western because it is a Western in a sense. Like they're on the Oregon Trail. They're there's a guy that's sort of a rogue cowboyish kind of guy that's leading them. And the reason I would call it sort of a neo-Western is it's kind of like flipping the perspective that you would normally have in a Western. So the main characters are the characters that you actually get the most perspective from are the women. And so like you'll have these scenes where like the men like are up ahead of them and they're like discussing and like making decisions and you can't really hear what they're saying. But you have the perspective of the women.
That's interesting.
And it's kind of like flipping the power structures in a way, which plays out in the movie really interestingly. But really,
I'll check it.
Say that again.
I'm curious. I'm going to check that one out.
Yeah, Meek's Cutoff. I really enjoyed that movie. Watched it a few years ago, I think. But yeah, that's definitely one that most people probably haven't seen, but hopefully they will after hearing me talk about it. But yeah, this is your sixth pick.
Number 6.
Where are you going to go?
I'm going to go with Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 1.
Great. I was wondering if one of us was going to get there. I don't think I was going to pick it. I really enjoyed this movie, but I didn't love it.
That's kind of where I am,
Yeah.
And it's one of the book is one of my favorite books of all time. It's in my top 3.
The book is incredible.
Yeah. And so the movie, like you said, I really enjoyed it. Didn't love it, like not like I loved the book, but really enjoyed it. And of course, it's all desert,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do feel like when I saw the movie, I was telling people at the end of the day, the book is kind of unadaptable for a movie, but if you're gonna adapt it, it feels like he did probably the best job you could do.
Yeah.
There's just so much in the book. You're so much in Paul Atreides' head.
Yeah.
That like it's hard to make that come across on screen well.
It's written so perfectly in the book. Like the inner monologues are perfect in that book. How do you translate that to film?
Yeah. The voiceover can only really do so much, like voiceover narration. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, this is my sixth pick. I have two more picks. I feel like I have a lot of pretty serious movies, and so I really need to lighten things up. I already picked one Coen Brothers movie, but I'm going to have to pick another and go with Raising Arizona.
Oh, gotcha. Good pick.
Which is such a fun movie. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't seen it, but I'm aware of it,
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a good pick.
Yeah, it's got a great performance by Nick Cage. It's got a lot of wild stuff going on, and it's funny. The Coens are actually, I feel like, are really good at comedy.
They are.
No Country is not a funny movie whatsoever. But Raising Arizona is very funny.
Yeah, they're good. They've got humor, like with Big Lebowski.
Oh yeah,
Fargo. Fargo has some dark humor in it.
Yeah, most of their movies do have a lot of comedy.
Yeah,
dark sometimes, but yeah. Oh, yeah, Raising Arizona. I recommend it. It's a fun movie.
Yep, I wrote it down. It's on my list.
All right, so this is your last pick.
And honestly, I'm kind of agonizing over this last pick because I've got a few, multiple good ones.
We'll do honorable mentions too.
Cool. Looking down the list, I'm just going to go with the one that I liked the most, even though I don't think it's the most crowd-pleasing one. But out of the ones I've got remaining, I'm going to go with the Book of Eli, which I really enjoyed. So that is my pick.
Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
It's hard. You can't really talk about the movie a whole lot because it'll spoil it.
Yeah.
If someone wants to watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
if you haven't seen it,
I feel like it's a fun movie.
It is. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. You'll like
it. Yeah, and it's about me.
It's literally the Book of Eli.
Yeah, it's about me. They asked me Eli, who do you want to play you in the movie? And I said, Denzel Washington, of course. So yeah, that's your dad joke of the episode.
That's awesome.
Man, I have, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 6, 7, or 8 more movies.
Yeah, I've got 5 more movies, and there's a bunch I didn't
that I would love to pick. I feel like I feel like one of these really needs to be on this list, even though there's a couple that I like more personally. But I feel like this has to be on the list because I watched it again. I actually watched it recently with that 60s movie bracket.
I think I know what
for that. Yeah, and I feel like this movie, before I say the name, is the quintessential desert movie, and so much so that the desert feels like a character that is beating down on evereveryone in the movie, especially
try to guess it before you see it.
Yes, see if you can guess.
You can finish what you're saying. I just want to guess.
Yeah, but it's beating down, even almost the sanity of these characters, especially the main character, as you go through the movie. And yeah, Ian, try to guess what it is.
I'm pretty sure it's Lawrence of Arabia.
You're correct. Yes. Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
Great. It really is a great movie. Peter O'Toole is just incredible.
He kills it.
As Lawrence. But yeah, it's a really, really super interesting character study on this guy. And yeah, the desert really does feel like a character, and the way that I'm blanking on the director of this one, David Lean.
Yeah.
The way that David Lean will he has these shots where it's the desert and the horizon, and you have maybe a setting sun, and the characters going across the horizon on camels, silhouetted. It's beautiful, but also really gives you the feeling of just like these people are in a desert and it's like it's awful.
Yeah.
Like,
It's those iconic shots. They're beautiful, but it also lets you see, like, it's almost menacing because you see the danger of the desert is present in those shots. And you're right. It's an incredible movie. I thought of picking it, but it's like, it's not. You're right. I feel like it has to be on one of our lists because of what it is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I just feel like it, you have to pick it. It really does feel like the quintessential desert movie.
Yeah.
So we picked it last. We slipped it in there. Did you have any honorable mentions that you wanted to?
Some ones that I didn't pick that I think are also great movies are Tremors. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
Let me see. Cars, the animated movie Cars. The first.
Yeah.
They're in it.
I wasn't even thinking of that, but yeah.
The Martian. It's with Matt Damon. He's
right. Another planet, just like Star Wars.
So yeah, and then Palm Springs is another good one.
Palm Springs with the comedy.
Yeah, it isn't like with
Andy Samberg.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I actually picked that on the time travel draft.
Yeah, funny movie.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, hilarious.
This might be a hot take, but it's got that same like Groundhog Day sort of thing, but I liked it more than Groundhog Day, honestly.
Oh, that is a hot take.
It's probably a hot take. I do, to be honest, I need to rewatch Groundhog Day, but
I can kind of see it. Palm Springs feels fresh,
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah. Some honorable mentions for me. I had on my list. There's a couple that one or two for sure that I really think are incredible movies. One is HUD, with Paul Newman. It's a 60s kind of Western. It's almost like a Shakespearean tragedy sort of feeling movie, is like in the form of a Western. But yeah, Paul Newman is great in that movie, as like kind of the tragic, character. Another one I really like, this is a director I've watched a lot of in the past like year or two. Jim Jarmusch's Dead Man, with Johnny Depp. It's a black and white sort of.
I've never.
Jim Jarmusch is, if I had to say, like, so Wes Anderson makes strange, quirky movies. And I feel like Jim Jarmusch is another one of those guys. His movies are very different than Wes Anderson's, but very strange movies. And this is like his take kind of on a Western. And I think it's a really great movie. Those are two like big ones. I also had Wild at Heart by David Lynch with Nick Cage. Hell or High Water. Yeah. Was a great movie. True, of course, another Grit. Coen's in True Grit. I haven't seen the original True Grit, but I love the Coens.
The Coen brothers.
Badlands. Have you ever seen Badlands?
No, I've heard of it.
Terrence Malick.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, those are. I think that's all the ones that I had on my list. But yeah, there's actually like just a ton of great movies with deserts.
Like earlier today, when you first said, we're going to do desert movies, my initial instinct was, oh man, it's going to be rough. But when I started thinking about it, I was like, well, there's this and this and this. And that's a desert, and this counts, and that's the thing. And I was like, came up with this huge list of like 12 or 13 movies just off the top of my head. I'm like, okay, I guess that was easy. There's a ton out there, and a ton that are great that I didn't even write down.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of them, but yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and read through our lists.
Okay.
Ian ended up with Raiders of the Lost Ark, Mad Max Fury Road, The Prince of Egypt, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Holes, Dune Part 1, The Book of Eli. Yeah, it's a good list.
I'm happy with it.
And then I ended up with Star Wars, No Country for Old Men, Paris, Texas, There Will Be Blood, Meek's Cutoff, Raising Arizona, and Lawrence of Arabia.
You also have a good list.
Yeah, these are both really good lists.
These are.
I really do like that you got an animated movie in there.
Yeah.
I like to try to get animated movies in the list, and I didn't squeeze it in this time.
Yeah, I always try to because I think animated movies need to be they need a little step up,
Oh,
so
yeah.
anytime I can, I'm like,
There's,
here you go. Especially in the studio.
I was trying to think earlier, man, are there any Miyazaki movies that are in the desert?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was looking through the list, and I was like, if there's any Miyazaki movie that's in the desert, I'm writing it down. I couldn't think of one. Could you think of any?
Yeah. I guess the closest you could get is maybe in I don't think it would really count, but in oh shoot.
Is it Nausicaa?
Nausicaa.
That's what I was thinking.
They're kind of making places into sort of deserts, but it's a strange.
That's the closest one I could think of, but I didn't write it down because I didn't think it was on the line,
Yeah, I felt the same way.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, I always like to get an animated movie in there. Man, you beat me too. That was the only animated movie I had written down.
It's Prince of Egypt.
Yeah, you just beat me to it. Yeah, that was fun.
No,
I enjoyed that. Yeah, do you I talked about I always wing the recommendation of the week. Do you have anything that you've thought of as we've gone?
Actually, so I said I was going to wing it, but during the intermission we had, I went and I picked 3 things, that just things I liked. And I don't know which one to go with, so I'll let you pick the category, and then I'll present the item because I'm not sure out of these 3. You can either pick a book, a board game, or a firearm.
Let's do board game. That sounds fun.
Sweet. So this board game is I think it's Spain. I think it's from Spain. It's called Awkward Guests.
Okay.
And it's basically the board game to replace Clue, the board game Clue.
Right.
If you like Clue, then you need to play this, because after playing this, I'll probably never play Clue again. This the feel, if you want the feel of being a detective and figuring out, who did it and how it was done. This is the game you need to play. It will blow your mind, because you really feel like you are figuring it out, and it's got tons of replayability. Can't recommend this game enough.
Awkward Guess.
Yeah, Awkward Guess.
Okay.
It's might be in limited print here in the States, but you can order it online. It's definitely being printed in Spain. I think it's in Spain.
Yeah.
But just make sure you get the English version. They do
right.
foreign language versions. So.
Unless you speak Spanish,
Unless you speak Spanish, in which case, knock yourself out.
Yeah. Which, I guess Galaxy Brain tie-in, it's from Spain. Wes Anderson shot Asteroid City in Spain. Perfect. You did you? I don't even know if you thought of that.
I did not.
It's perfect.
No. I was just trying to pick stuff I liked.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I honestly the only thing I can think of is what I'm looking at right now, which I've shown before on the show, but I don't remember if it's been a recommendation. But this is the first time I've taken huge extensive notes on movies and director. But I had found these. There's a guy that makes these Amazon published books, little books. But they're these film studies notebooks.
Ooh.
And so this one is this one is Wes Anderson specific. So I'll kind of open it. So if you're on YouTube, you can see. But yeah, so he'll have a list of all the movies. You can write when you watched it and your rating. And then for each movie, you'll have he has the production notes, and then a kind of like systematic rating system. So you can rate each aspect of the movie, like
My gosh.
the production, the directing, the writing, the lighting, the composition. You can rate like all those aspects.
I need to get that.
And then there's just like, after that, for each movie, there's just like a bunch of pages where you can take notes on each movie. And then additional like note-taking space in the back.
No way.
Yeah. So it's just been really helpful going through this series. Like it even has the wonderful story of Henry Sugar, which I guess when he made this one, that was supposed to be a movie, but I think it's actually going to be like a short film now. I think I heard that somewhere, that Wes decided to make it just like a short film for Netflix or something.
What's the name of the book?
Yeah. So it's, if you want to look it up, it's, you probably can't see it very well on the screen, but the guy's name is George Argyll. It's probably what you'll have to search on Amazon. It's George Argyll. And they're called like film studies notebooks.
Okay. Yeah, I wrote that down.
And so
I love that.
Yeah, so he has there are a lot of like big current directors, like he has these specifically for.
Sweet.
So like, Denis Villeneuve, Chris Nolan, Paul Thomas Anderson, all those sorts of guys, like he has these notebooks for. But he also has some that are like just like this same format, but are like blank. So that if he doesn't have one for the director you're looking for, you can just fill it in yourself, sort of thing.
That is
so I don't have one of those, but I assume like for these pages, this would just all be blank and you could fill it in yourself, sort of thing. But yeah, it's a really helpful tool.
I didn't know
so
they made
I guess
stuff like that. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's great. It's been super helpful because obviously you can just buy a notebook and take notes, but this is like just helps organize it so much better, and it's really inexpensive. I think this is like $9 something.
Get out of here! Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my recommendation. These little film studies notebooks by George Argyll on Amazon. It's one of those things that I'm sure he just like has a template and just fills in the info and then sells it on Amazon. I'm like, why didn't I think of that first? I could be making money off of these things.
Like, that's an easy buy.
Oh yeah. But yeah, that's my recommendation of the week, and that's gonna do it for us. We are done with all of Wes Anderson's movies until the next one he makes, and then we'll come back for this series. We'll dip our toes back in Wes Anderson when he comes out with another Wes movie. But yeah, like I said, next week on the show, I'll be doing a Wes Anderson epilogue of sorts, just reflecting back on the series, and I'll be announcing officially the next director series I'm going to be doing, which I'm really excited about. A lot of you probably already have figured it out from the tease that I gave earlier in the show. Ian did. Ian figured it out pretty easily. He guessed it right during the break. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing everyone again next week when I do my epilogue show. But until then, I've been Eli Price. For Ian Naude, this has been The Establishing Shot. We'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us on The Establishing Shot today. We hope you enjoyed the episode and got a lot out of it. Make sure before you go to like and subscribe on all your podcast platforms, and especially on Spotify and Apple. If you could leave a rating and review, that would greatly help the visibility of the podcast, and I would greatly appreciate it. Again, if you go to establishingshotpod.com, you can find out all you need to know about the show, where to find us on the social media platforms, where to find us podcast-wise, YouTube, and you can even leave a voicemail there on the website on the right side of your screen. So click that if you want to give a comment or ask a question about the show. Just feel free to leave a voicemail. We'd be happy to feature that on the show. And also, if you just want to email rather than leave a voicemail, you can email us at establishingshotpod@gmail.com. and we would be happy to answer your question there or feature a question or comment on the show if it pertains to the episodes. So please do that. And we would love for you to join the Establishing Shot family. You can, again, find where to do that on the donate page at establishingshotpod.com. We hope you have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.
We were happy here. For a little while.
But look, I figure it this way. Better to be king for a night than schmuck for a lifetime.